99 quantum theories, suggesting nothing is real to fall asleep. 2. Have you ever wondered if your entire life, this room, this breath, even this thought, is nothing but a flicker in someone else's dream? Out there, beyond the stars and within the folds of your mind, lie theories, 99 of them, that quietly whisper the same impossible idea. Nothing is truly real. Not in the way we think, not in the way we were taught to believe. Tonight, we won't debate reality. We'll unravel it slowly, gently, like silk slipping through fingers. From quantum entanglement to the illusion of time, from multiverses brushing past our own to the idea that matter itself may be a shared hallucination. This isn't science fiction. It's science, poetry, and philosophy converging in the quiet corners of the cosmos. So breathe in and let it go. You don't need to understand everything. Just be here. Allow these ideas to soften your thoughts, dissolve the edges of your identity, and carry you toward the deep, lucid waters of rest. Welcome to 99 quantum theories, suggesting nothing is real. Let's begin the drift. The curtain between realms. What if the warmth of a lover's hand, the laughter echoing through a memory, or even the ground beneath your feet, were never truly there to begin with? What if every moment you believed to be real was merely light flickering across the folds of consciousness, a projection dancing on a screen that you've never seen the other side of? Tonight, let us gently peel back the curtain between what we accept as reality and the deep, trembling unknown that lies just behind it. Close your eyes, if they're not already closed, and picture yourself in a dimly lit room. There are shadows moving on the wall, shapes, sounds, sensations. You've always thought they were real, but what if they were just shadows? Plato once described this scene in his allegory of the cave, a haunting tale where prisoners mistake flickering shadows for the fullness of life, never realizing there is a sunlit world outside the cave they were born into. In a sense, we too are those prisoners, but instead of stone walls and firelight, our cave is made of neurons, language, and belief systems. Our captors? Evolutionary survival, limited senses, and the bounds of perception itself. You see, your mind doesn't show you the truth. It shows you what helps you survive. You don't see reality. You see patterns, symbols, shortcuts. The smell of a rose is not the rose. It's your brain's interpretation of molecules dancing on air. The color red is not a thing. It's a frequency, a vibration. Your entire experience of now is a filtered broadcast. Neural signals processed in the dark theater of your skull. So what are we really touching when we reach out to the world? The surface of a thing? Or the reflection of an idea we've never truly seen? And in this gentle unmasking, something odd begins to stir, like waking from a dream only to find yourself inside another. If everything is filtered, then nothing is unfiltered. We live perhaps not in a world of objects, but in a portrait constantly painted by the mind. And a painting is not the wall it hangs upon. It is art. It is illusion. It is interpretation. If you have ever stood in awe before a sunset, wondering why it feels like something holy, maybe it's because part of you already knows that the beauty is not out there, but in the way your mind drapes it with meaning. Maybe the most sacred parts of life are not real in the physical sense, but are more real than anything atoms could offer. A soft voice enters the moment. Hey, have you ever had a dream so vivid it stayed with you all day? Yeah, another replies, whispering. Sometimes I think that dream was more real than the morning I woke up. A silence lingers between them, And that silence is the curtain. So as you lie here, listening, breathing softly in the dark, ask yourself, what if the real world is not behind your eyelids, but within them? What if the projector is inside your own consciousness, and you are both actor and audience? Let's take a breath together. Inhale, hold, and slowly exhale. Because here's the next turn in our journey. Those hands you call your own, those legs, that chest rising with breath, they are made of atoms, and atoms are mostly empty space. In fact, they are over 99.9999% emptiness. The matter you cling to is hardly there at all. So what does that make you? And with that gentle question, we drift into the next realm. The hollow atom. Your body feels firm, grounded, tangible. You run your fingers across your chest or the sheets tucked beneath you, and you say, yes, this is real. I'm here. I exist. But what if you were only feeling a lie dressed in the comfort of familiarity? Breathe in. And now, soften your attention. The illusion begins with atoms, the building blocks of everything you've ever touched. You, me, this room. And yet each of these atoms, everyone, holds a secret. Inside an atom is a nucleus. It's not large, not even close. Imagine a marble at the center of a cathedral. That's the nucleus. Surrounding it, electrons, but not like planets around a sun. These are clouds of probability, mathematical whispers dancing through uncertain space. Between them lies nothing, vast, echoing void. So, your body, the one you trust to carry your heart, your pain, your laughter, it's 99.9999% empty. You're built from particles that almost never touch, like shadows playing a game of make-believe. And when you press your hand against the wall, it's not resistance you feel. It's electrons repelling electrons. You never touch anything. You hover, forever distant, pretending closeness. Wait, someone might say. If everything's made of almost nothing, why don't we fall through the floor? And the answer is both beautiful and haunting. We are held up not by mass, but by forces, fields, energy waves arranging themselves in patterns that look like substance. We are songs written in the language of matter, but performed in silence. Does that mean I'm not real? You could almost hear the tremble in her voice. I didn't say that, he replies softly. But maybe you're not what you think you are. Reality has tricked us with weight and solidity. But beneath the surface, we're architecture spun from emptiness and electric tension, like ghosts convinced we have bones, like digital illusions in a dream of physics. And if you're not truly solid, if your every cell is a shimmering mirage of probability, then what is the self you call me? Is it the shape of your skin, the story in your brain, or just a field of consciousness floating inside a structure made of mostly nothing? That's kind of scary, she says, a quiet laugh escaping through the stillness. It is, he replies, but also freeing, don't you think? We're not confined. We're unbound. Now, close your eyes. Not in fear, but in wonder. Can you feel it? That hum? The stillness between your breath and the next? That's the quantum silence you were born from. Let your bones forget their name. Let your thoughts soften like ink in water. Because in this moment, you're not a body lying in bed. You're a constellation of echoes, a ripple inside a dream pretending to be solid. And now, if your body is mostly space, what about this world? What if the entire universe is just a simulation, a beautifully coded illusion? Don't worry, we'll drift there soon. But for now, rest in the hollow of your own breath, because even in emptiness, there is peace. the simulation hypothesis. What if everything you've ever felt, touched, or believed wasn't real in the way you think? What if the stars above, the blood in your veins, the laughter of your child, were not bound by atoms and molecules, but by logic gates and binary code? Imagine for a moment that this universe, with all its beauty and heartbreak, is nothing more than a simulation, a highly complex rendering run inside a computer so advanced that it makes our reality indistinguishable from base reality, if that even exists. This is the unsettling yet fascinating premise of the simulation hypothesis, most notably proposed by philosopher Nick Bostrom. His argument is not simply science fiction, it's a mathematical probability. If any civilization reaches a level of technological maturity where they can simulate entire realities, complete with conscious agents like you and me, then it becomes far more likely that we are living in such a simulation, rather than being the original creators. Statistically speaking, the real physical universe might be vastly outnumbered by simulated ones. But if you accept that idea, even for a moment, the implications spiral quickly. Who are you then? Are your memories, those precious fragments of your identity, just lines of pre-written data inserted for narrative effect? Is your joy real, or a dopamine subroutine meant to balance the code? What about your suffering? Is it pain, or just a beautifully programmed illusion of pain, calculated to teach you something, or to serve the purpose of the simulation's narrative arc? Late at night, when you stare up at the stars and feel that aching pull of wonder, are you admiring celestial fireballs, or just digital particles rendered at the moment of your observation to save computational power? Like a video game that doesn't load terrain until the player gets close, maybe the moon only becomes detailed when you look up. Maybe your memories are streamed to you as needed, not stored, but generated. In that world, your sense of continuity, of a life with a past and a future, might be a carefully woven illusion. Do you think it matters? One voice asks. I don't know, comes the reply. If it feels real, if I can love and fear and grieve, does it matter if it's code? That question isn't just philosophical. It cuts to the center of what it means to be alive. If our emotions are programmable, does it make them less meaningful? Or does meaning arise not from the source, but from the experience itself? After all, if a synthetic mind can suffer like a biological one, should we not offer it the same compassion? And yet, what happens when the rendering stops? When the simulation is paused, or worse, deleted? Does the soul, if such a thing exists, persist beyond the lines of code that defined it? Somewhere between the observer and the observed, between the code and the consciousness that runs through it, lies the mystery. You might be watching the world, or the world might be watching you. Or perhaps, you and the world are just two ends of the same equation. Close your eyes, breathe, feel the illusion hold you. And now, ask yourself not just what is real, but why you were made to believe in it. The observer effect. In a quiet laboratory decades ago, scientists shot single particles, tiny bundles of energy, toward a barrier with two slits. They expected the particles to act like solid bullets, going through one slit or the other. But when no one was watching, they didn't. They behaved like waves, interfering with themselves, creating patterns of probability rather than predictability. Yet when scientists placed detectors to observe which slit each particle passed through, the wave collapsed. The interference vanished. The particles suddenly acted like solid objects again, choosing just one path, as if the very act of watching had rewritten the script of reality. This is the famous double-slit experiment, but beyond its scientific elegance lies something quietly terrifying. The implication that observation changes reality, not metaphorically, literally. That somehow the universe behaves differently when it knows it's being watched. Wait, how can particles know anything? You might ask. That's the unsettling part. They don't have eyes. They don't think. And yet, in every test, the moment you observe the particle, the wave of possibility collapses into a single outcome, as if the presence of a conscious observer, you, locks the universe into place. Two friends are lying on a rooftop, staring up at the night sky. You ever think that maybe the stars aren't really there until we look? One whispers. The other chuckles softly. I've thought about it. But then, what are they when we're not? A silence stretches between them. Not the empty kind, but the full-bodied stillness of two minds brushing up against something ancient. In quantum physics, this strange dance between awareness and the material world is known as the observer effect. And while the technical explanations involve wave functions, measurement apparatuses, and mathematical uncertainty, the emotional truth it reveals is more intimate. You are not separate from the universe. You are entangled with it. Your gaze doesn't just witness, it participates. It begins to blur the line between subject and object, between the one who sees and the thing being seen. What if your consciousness is not merely a light shining upon reality, but a sculptor shaping its very contours? If watching a particle collapse a wave, then what does your attention do to the people you love, to the dreams you chase, to the fears you feed? Maybe this is why we're told to be mindful, not just for peace, but because mindfulness itself is a creative force. To watch with awareness is to call the invisible into form. To stare with presence is to nudge the cosmos into a decision. A child gazes at an old tree, and somehow the tree becomes more real. Not because it changed, but because she did. Her attention made it vivid, sacred, witnessed. So if perception changes the particle, what does that make you, the perceiver? Are you a god in miniature, walking through a quantum field, collapsing possibility into presence with every breath? Or are you just the echo of the world looking back at itself? Perhaps both. And this is the quiet revolution hidden within the observer effect. Reality is not fixed. It is relational. It changes based on how you engage with it. You are not simply drifting through the universe. You are composing it. With every choice, every question, every glance. Take a breath. Let that truth settle in like a gentle wave. You are not merely watching life happen. You are shaping it, moment by moment. Now, let's sink deeper into the mystery of what truly makes you. The illusion of self. You are not who you think you are, or at least not in the way you've been taught to believe. There is a quiet rebellion unfolding in the fields of neuroscience and contemplative philosophy, a shared whisper that the self is not a fixed entity, but a mirage crafted by memory, emotion, and habit. Modern brain science reveals something almost disorienting. There is no central place in the brain where you live. There is no throne at the core of your consciousness, no singular voice steering the ship. Instead, the self is more like a committee, fragmented, ever-shifting, built out of recollections from childhood, emotional echoes of past events, and the cultural stories you've unconsciously absorbed. You are more narrative than fact, more process than person. In the eyes of Buddhist thought, this idea isn't new. For centuries, monks have meditated on the emptiness of identity, dissolving the illusion of I in quiet contemplation. They liken the self to a river, always moving, never the same from one moment to the next, yet still perceived as a single thing. What you call you is just this, an ongoing flow of sensations, interpretations, labels, and assumptions that gather like mist and take on a shape. But try to grab hold of it, and it slips through your fingers. Imagine for a moment you're looking in a mirror. The face staring back is familiar, perhaps even comforting. But is it truly you? The cells in that face have changed over the years. The thoughts behind the eyes have evolved. The memories that shape your personality have been revised, distorted, or forgotten. And yet, you still believe in a consistent I behind it all. But what if that I is just a well-trained illusion? Who am I really? You might ask. And suddenly, the floor shifts. Because if the self is not stable, then what anchors your choices, your dreams, your fears? Two friends sit beneath a twilight sky. One turns to the other and asks, "Do you ever feel like you're just playing a role, even when you're alone?" The other exhales slowly, watching the fading light. "Sometimes I wonder if there's anyone behind the role at all." The silence that follows isn't empty. It's thick with recognition. Because if the self is a mask worn by memory and context, then peeling it away doesn't leave nothing. It leaves openness, possibility, the freedom to be anything or nothing at all. And in that moment of quiet undoing, a strange peace can settle in. You are not your name, not your job, not the roles you've performed or the story you've clung to. You are the awareness that witnesses it all, slipping between identities like light through leaves. So the question remains, if there's no fixed I, then who is the one reading these words right now? Who is the one that feels these thoughts? And if even feeling is not constant, if it changes with the wind of your moods and hormones and history, then who is it that claims the experience is mine? Let us not rush to answer. Let's hold that question in silence and move toward the particle that knows how to be many things at once. Quantum superposition. Somewhere between heartbeat and hesitation. You've lived more lives than you know. There is a version of you that said yes, and another that walked away. A version that stayed silent, and one that sang. All of them still humming in the quiet folds of possibility, waiting for a choice to be witnessed. In the strange fabric of quantum mechanics, there's a principle called superposition. It suggests that particles, the tiniest building blocks of everything, don't settle into one state until someone observes them. Until then, they hover in a cloud of maybes, neither here nor there, both alive and not. Schrödinger's cat, quietly breathing in a box it may never open. But this isn't just about cats or atoms in labs. This is about you. You, reading this now, are not just who you are. You're also every version of who you could have been, and might still be. The person who spoke up, the one who forgave, the one who ran. They all still exist in the subtle folds of your mind, like unopened letters from a life you almost lived. "Hey," a soft voice breaks the quiet. A barista placing down a drink with a name scribbled just slightly wrong. You ever wonder if you're living the right version of your life? The other person smiles without looking up. Only every morning before coffee. There's no judgment in the question, no answer in the reply. Just a shared understanding. Two lives brushing past one another, both suspended in their own, maybe. Superposition doesn't mean chaos. It means potential. It means that until you choose, the page is still blank. But the moment you decide, No matter how small the act, it's like a photograph developing. One version becomes real, and the others fade like mist in morning light. That's why some nights you lie in bed, eyes closed, and feel something shift. A thought that could have changed everything. A word you didn't say. A flight you didn't take. It's not regret. It's resonance. A quiet echo of a path you might have walked, still trembling at the edge of your awareness. And yet, you are not trapped. Not by past indecision. Not by the illusion of fate. You are fluid. You are becoming. And every breath is still a vote for who you want to be. You don't have to leap. Sometimes, it's enough to simply notice. A woman leans against a lamppost, waiting for a signal to change. Not in a hurry. Not lost. Just still. Beside her, someone asks, "Do you ever feel like there are versions of you waiting at different corners, living different days?" She nods slowly. "Yes, but tonight, I'm here. And I think that's enough. Maybe this is what it means to collapse the wave, to choose this you now, the one who didn't rush, who let the silence stretch, who let possibility linger just a second longer. Because perhaps you are both bold and afraid, strong and uncertain, free and tethered, and your soul, wise in its own quiet way, is still deciding which thread to follow. But rest assured, none of it is wasted. Not the paused moments, not the unopened doors. Every version of you carries a lesson, a whisper, a reason. And tonight, as the world fades to black, let them all rest with you, even the ones you never lived. Let's tiptoe gently now, into the realm where time itself begins to bend. The fluidity of time. It begins not with a ticking clock, but with a stillness that defies ticking altogether. You were told time moves forward, always forward. Like a river rushing past stones, it carries youth into age, causes into effects, beginnings into inevitable ends. But Einstein didn't see it that way. In his vision, quiet, radical, and cold as moonlight, time was not a river. It was a block, a sculpture, a frozen landscape where past, present, and future all coexist side by side. Each moment a room in a mansion of reality, all equally real, equally alive. "Wait," says one voice in the dark, "so you're telling me the future already exists?" And the other answers, "Yes. It's just not your turn to visit it yet." Imagine walking across a field, pausing at a certain hill, and claiming this spot is where the world begins and ends. That's how we treat the present, as if it were special. But what if it's only special because you're standing on it? In the block universe, your childhood is not gone. It hasn't vanished into the mist. It simply lives elsewhere, like a distant country you once visited. Your future self, already there, living a moment you haven't yet arrived at, waving from a mountaintop you can't yet see. This isn't fantasy. It's physics. Time, in this view, is a dimension, no different from height or depth. You don't destroy a road by walking past it. You just leave it behind. So what does that mean for you? If every moment is already written, etched in the marble of reality, do you really make choices? Or are you simply discovering the path already carved for you? Are you the sculptor? Or just a visitor in the gallery? One woman once asked her partner late at night, "If the past still exists, does that mean the version of me that first kissed you? She's still there somewhere?" He smiled softly. "I think she is. And the me who was too nervous to speak that day, he's probably still sweating through his shirt." And in that laughter was a kind of timelessness, because if all versions of you persist, each age, each mistake, each smile, you are not aging, you are expanding, not a candle burning down, but a constellation widening its reach. Your suffering even is not lost, nor is your joy. They are each rooms you once lived in and may visit again in dream or memory or something deeper. But here's the whisper beneath it all. If every version of you exists at once, then your worth is not tied to this moment. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not missing out. You are just here, and also there, and also then. And now, as your mind drifts like smoke into the next idea, let's ask the final question. If time is a painting, can the paint ever swirl back on itself? Can the future echo into the past? We'll step into that loop together, softly, slowly, just as one dream folds into another. Time loop paradoxes. What if tomorrow never came? Or worse, what if it came, then folded backward like the pages of a book being closed, returning you not to a new chapter, but to the exact same line you read the day before? Imagine waking up, brushing your teeth, stepping outside, only to realize it's not today at all. It's yesterday. Again and again. The air smells the same, the clouds are in the same place, and somewhere deep in your bones, you know what's about to happen next. You've lived this moment already. Didn't this already happen? I was about to ask you the same thing. This is the riddle of the time loop, a strange corridor in the mansion of quantum theory where reality might curve back on itself. In a universe shaped by closed time-like curves, time doesn't always flow forward like a river. Sometimes it coils, like a serpent biting its tail. The past and the future blend, and causality becomes negotiable. What does that mean for you? In such loops, it's not just that you can visit the past. You could alter it. Or worse, be trapped in it. One theory even suggests you could become the cause of your own existence. Not just metaphorically, but literally. A closed loop of being. Like Janus, the two-faced god of time, you are both the child and the parent of your own becoming. But the consequences stretch further. If time folds, then what folds first? Your memory or the moment itself? Could your recollection of an event be the very thing that anchors it into existence? Is déjà vu truly a glitch? Or is it a signal? A soft whisper from another iteration of your timeline that's already passed through this corridor before? Two friends might be walking through a park. Have we been here before? You said that same thing last time. There was a last time? I think so. Or maybe this is the first time we've remembered it together. It's unsettling, comforting even. This idea that you might never really be lost. Because if time loops, then every step you take might just lead back to where you already are. Yet the loop doesn't always bring peace. Learning, suffering, crying, only to forget and repeat it all. What if karma wasn't just a philosophy, but a physics, a coded routine embedded in the structure of time? And what if the loop isn't universal but personal, a soul-sized orbit? Maybe you are the loop, repeating not just moments but mistakes, desires, dreams, falling for the same illusions, awakening to the same truths. Now breathe. Let this thought circle gently like smoke in a still room. The loop is neither prison nor salvation. It is a mirror. And in it, you might glimpse not just who you are, but who you've always been becoming. So, follow me, slowly now, into the idea that maybe you were never really here to begin with. The Holographic Principle. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the universe not as a vast space you drift through, but as a thin film, floating at the edge of reality. Every moment you've lived, every tear you've cried, every breath you've taken, it might not exist in the way you think. It might just be a projection. Not fiction, but encoded fact. not illusion, but compressed elegance. The holographic principle is one of the most hauntingly poetic ideas in theoretical physics. It suggests that the three-dimensional world we inhabit, with its stars and emotions and skin and sky, could actually be the shadow of a deeper truth. According to this theory, everything we experience may be encoded on a distant two-dimensional surface, like a grand cosmic hard drive stretched across the boundary of space. In this view, the depth you feel when reaching out to touch a friend's hand is not truly spatial. It's mathematical. It's calculated. It's rendered. Think about it. What you call a solid world may just be data processed in such a way that your consciousness experiences it as having height, depth, and motion. Your body, that fragile container of breath and bone, may be no more physical than a ripple on a pond. Only it's not water, but information, vibrating across an unseen membrane. Now, imagine a quiet conversation between two friends late at night. "Do you ever wonder," she whispers, "if all this is just a kind of code?" He shifts slightly, staring at the ceiling. "You mean like in The Matrix?" "Not fiction. I mean physics, real physics. That everything, our thoughts, our pain, the people we lose, might just be patterns on a surface somewhere else. And we're just the echo. The silence between them holds a different weight now. Not empty, but full of questions they're too sleepy or too scared to answer. If the universe is a hologram, what does that make your memories? Your childhood dreams? Your heartbreaks? Are they still yours? Or are they instances in a larger file, read and rendered by the universe every time you remember them? Is your love a true experience, or an elegantly folded piece of light? But let's go even deeper. If what we call reality is a projection from another plane, then the real world, the true source, might lie somewhere far beyond the veil of perception, like the light behind a movie projector, casting patterns onto a screen we call existence. So, what is that projector? What lies behind the screen? Let your breath soften. Let your thoughts quiet. Because to glimpse that answer, you must listen not with ears, but with the hush between them. You must ask not the stars, but the silence that holds them. And as we drift further into this idea, deeper into this sleep of questions, one last thought gently hums. If we are the hologram, who or what is dreaming us? The vacuum is not empty. When most people hear the word nothing, their minds go silent. They picture a dark room with no walls, no echoes, no air. A total absence of anything to feel, touch, or know. It's the pause between thoughts, the blank between stars. We imagine it as the great cosmic silence, the background hum of the universe turned all the way down. But physics leans in with a secret and whispers something strange. Even nothing isn't nothing. In the realm of quantum mechanics, what we call empty space is anything but. The vacuum isn't void. It's vibrating. Beneath the quiet, it seethes. Pairs of particles pop in and out of existence, borrowing energy from the abyss, like ghosts dancing briefly in candlelight before vanishing. These particles are called virtual because they're not permanent, but they are real enough to nudge the fabric of reality. In a sea with no waves, But when you look closer, it's teeming with invisible currents. That's the vacuum. That's the so-called nothingness that holds galaxies in its cradle. Now pause. Let's eavesdrop on two voices drifting into sleep. So you're telling me space isn't really empty? Nope, it's buzzing with possibility, like a quiet room full of dreams you haven't had yet. That's wild. I always thought the vacuum was just blank. Maybe it's not blank. Maybe it's just waiting to be noticed. And just like that, the emptiness becomes a canvas, a birthplace, the womb of existence. If the vacuum is full, brimming with the potential for matter, motion, light, then maybe absence itself is misunderstood. Maybe silence is another kind of music. Maybe nothing is simply a different form of everything, seen through a softer lens. This flips everything we know, because we often treat stillness as death, emptiness as lack. But in this new light, it becomes sacred, full of quiet power. It whispers, "Don't fear the void." It holds the seed of all creation. Think of the spaces between your thoughts, the still gaps between your breaths. Are those gaps meaningless? Or are they what make your thoughts clearer, your life livable? Even the pause in a song is part of the melody. Now, reflect gently. If even the deepest vacuum is never truly empty, could the parts of you that feel hollow also be full of hidden life? The lonely spaces inside you, could they be quantum gardens waiting for your awareness to bloom them into being? You think the universe feels lonely? Maybe, but maybe loneliness is just space stretching itself, preparing for something new. So, even when I feel nothing, maybe something stirring underneath. Always. And with that, we drift deeper. Let's now carry this thought further, not outward into galaxies, but inward into the self. If space isn't still, if nothing is alive, then what about you? What if the parts of your identity you thought were fixed, your name, your role, your past, are just momentary appearances, like those flickering virtual particles? What if even your stillness is dancing? Close your eyes. Feel the hum in the quiet. Let us now step softly into the next mystery. Quantum entanglement and the death of separateness. You are sitting alone. Perhaps the room is quiet, dimly lit, humming only with the low throb of your thoughts. You feel the distance between you and everything else, the walls, the sky, the stars, another person in another city, the version of yourself you left behind. It all feels separate. But what if that's an illusion? What if space is just a veil, not a wall? What if you were never actually alone, only taught to feel that way? In the strangest corners of quantum physics, there's a phenomenon so bizarre even Einstein struggled with it. He called it spooky action at a distance. Quantum entanglement. A name that sounds romantic, almost poetic. But behind it lies a crack in the very idea of separateness. Two particles, born together, measured together, remain intertwined, no matter how far apart they drift. Touch one, and the other shivers. Tug one, and the other twitches in sync. They don't send signals. They don't wait for light to travel between them. Their connection is instant, as if distance doesn't exist between them at all. A quiet voice asks, "So you're saying they're kind of in love?" Not in the way we think of it, but maybe they never stopped being one. Even if they're light years apart? Especially then, maybe the farther they go, the louder the thread hums. If this is true, if two things can remain connected across the void, what does that say about us? Are we truly isolated bodies bumping into each other in a meaningless cosmos? Or are we, like those particles, threads in a single vast web plucked into motion by unseen hands? If matter can mirror itself across galaxies, perhaps every moment of empathy, déjà vu, or sudden grief isn't coincidence, but resonance. A quiet echo of entanglement. Maybe your pain wasn't born in you alone. Maybe someone else felt it too, without knowing why. Maybe every hug is just a reunion of particles that once held hands beneath the stars. And loneliness? What if loneliness is not a truth, but a trick? A story told by classical physics. A narrative we needed when we couldn't see the thread. Because in quantum terms, boundaries are blurry. The more you zoom in, the less you find a clear edge. No line between you and the world. No fence between your thoughts and someone else's heart. Everything entangled. Everything humming in tune. And maybe, just maybe, when we whisper to someone in the night and they feel it without knowing why, that's not magic. That's the echo of quantum touch, a science deeper than science. So pause now, gently. Close your eyes. Breathe. Feel that hum? That's not your loneliness. That's the thread. Between you and the ones you love. Between you and the sky. Between you and the particle that just blinked across the stars. Let that awareness rest in you like a warm light. And now, gently, let's turn inward and ask, if we are all entangled, then who, really, is the dreamer? And whose dream is this? The dream hypothesis. What if, right now, you're dreaming? You feel your weight on the bed, or the couch, or the floor. You hear the faint hum of a distant car, the rustle of fabric, maybe even the soft breathing of someone nearby. But close your eyes for a moment and ask yourself, how do you know this is real? Philosophers from east to west have wrestled with this very question. Descartes, in his Meditations, famously wondered whether all of life could be a dream so vivid, so complete, that it fools even the sharpest reason. The Dalai Lama, from a different path, suggests that what we call waking life is but another layer of dreaming, less fleeting perhaps, but no less illusory. And neuroscience? It offers no solid ground either. When you dream, your brain sends the same kinds of electrical signals, activates the same emotional centers, and even maps time in similar ways. You laugh, you cry, you feel pain, you fall in love, all within a reality that doesn't exist. So, what if tonight's sleep is no different than this very moment? A boy once asked his grandmother, "How do I know this isn't a dream?" She looked at him gently and whispered, "Even dreams come with bills, sweetheart." The trick is not in proving reality, it's in learning from the dream. And therein lies the quiet thunder of the dream hypothesis. If we cannot prove we are awake, then perhaps the line between dreaming and waking is not a wall, but a veil. Let's go deeper. Think about the last dream you had. Did you know it was a dream while you were inside it? Likely not. The mind accepted the absurd as normal. You could fly. Someone long gone could return. The sky might have turned green. And yet, none of it seemed strange until you awoke. What if death is just such an awakening? And what if this life, this moment, you reading these words, is just another form of dreaming still awaiting its dawn? A quiet voice inside might protest, but I remember yesterday. I feel continuity. I have responsibilities. Yes, but dreams too carry stories. Some dreams last seconds. Others feel like they stretch for years. Entire lives built in the space between two blinks. A couple sits beneath a tree. One looks at the other and says, "I had a dream where I lost you. And when I woke up, I cried." The other responds softly, "I had one where I found you. And I never wanted to wake up." They sit in silence, unsure if they've ever truly woken up. If this is a dream, then whose is it? Yours? God's? The universe playing out every possible storyline in the theater of consciousness? Maybe there is no dreamer, just the dream itself, flowing like a river without origin, looping upon itself. So many questions emerge in the quiet night, but answers? They slip through our fingers like moonlight on water. Let's not rush toward clarity. Let us rest inside the wonder, float with it, and as we drift toward the next horizon, we'll arrive at a riddle so unsettling, so beautiful, it made even Einstein hesitate, where particles dance across light years in perfect synchrony. Entanglement is calling. Sleep deeper, dreamer. You're almost there. The Ship of Theseus. Late at night, when the noise of the world quiets and your thoughts begin to whisper, have you ever asked yourself, am I the same person I was 10 years ago? Or even yesterday? The Ship of Theseus, a puzzle offered by ancient Greek philosophers, asks something similar. Imagine a grand wooden ship. Time wears it down, and piece by piece, every plank is replaced. Eventually, not a single original part remains. Then, someone gathers the discarded planks and reassembles them into a ship. So now, there are two, one sailing proud and new, the other built from the past. Which one is truly Theseus's ship? And more importantly, what does that mean for you? You see, your body does the same thing. Cells die and renew. The skin you're in right now wasn't here 7 years ago. Even your bones, the very framework of your existence, have slowly turned over. The person who first fell in love, who first broke down crying alone in the dark, that person is, in some literal sense, gone. But you remember them, don't you? I still feel like me, you might say. But then again, what is me? You are more than matter. You are memory. But memory fades. You are more than habits. But habits evolve. You are more than dreams. But dreams shift, twist, and sometimes disappear. And yet, through every version of yourself that has crumbled and reassembled, something persists. A voice, a direction, a shadow cast through time. Like a melody played on different instruments, your identity carries a familiar tune, but is never quite the same. Two friends sit on a porch, staring into the night. Do you ever think we've changed too much? One asks, cradling a coffee cup like it's the last anchor to something real. The other smiles. Of course. But maybe that's the point. Maybe who we are isn't a fixed thing. Maybe it's the fact that we remember we've changed that keeps us whole. Silence settles between them. Not empty, but full of something unspoken. The kind of silence that understands. So if you are a ship, rebuilt plank by plank through the years, are you still the same vessel that launched into the sea of childhood? Or are you a new ship now, shaped by storms and sun and time? The paradox doesn't exist to be solved. It exists to remind us. Identity isn't a photograph. It's a film, a continuous becoming. And if that's true, then change is not a loss. It's a passage. You are not a static statue. You are a river that remembers every stone it's touched. So float gently now through this moment, knowing that the parts of you that have been replaced didn't vanish. They transformed, and in doing so, they made space for something new. Let us now drift towards something even more mysterious. Not what you are, but what you will become. If identity is always shifting, then how much of your future has already begun, written in the language of who you're becoming? Close your eyes. Let's sail toward destiny. Retrocausality. What if the arrow of time didn't just move forward, but looped? What if, hidden in the subatomic hush, tomorrow could nudge yesterday? The idea sounds like poetic fiction, but some corners of quantum theory entertain it seriously. Retrocausality. A strange whisper from the future, back into the folds of the past. Not a loud command, not a crash of thunder, but a ripple, a hint that something downstream is reaching back upstream. In the transactional interpretation of quantum mechanics, the universe doesn't just unfold in one direction. Particles don't merely respond to the conditions they emerge from. They also seem to echo back from the measurements they will one day encounter. In this picture, a photon doesn't just shoot forward through space. It also receives a kind of confirmation from the future, a handshake across time. It's like casting a stone across a river and feeling it land before you ever throw it. Sitting quietly in a cafe one evening, two friends trade thoughts between sips of coffee. "So you're telling me," the first asks, squinting toward the window, "that something I will do next week could be shaping how I feel right now?" "That's what some physicists think," the other replies, setting their mug down gently. "That the future isn't just waiting for us. It's already participating." Then how do I even trust my memories? The first asks. What if they're being edited by what hasn't even happened yet? Maybe memory isn't just recall, the second muses. Maybe it's also rehearsal. This changes everything. If particles can respond to the future, then maybe time isn't a straight hallway. It's a room with reflections on every wall. Maybe your choices today are being gently pulled by the gravitational tug of outcomes that haven't arrived yet. Maybe your regrets aren't just about what happened, but what could still happen. It reframes responsibility, doesn't it? Not as a reaction to the past, but as a dance with the possible future. It also brings a kind of hope. If the past isn't fully fixed, if the present is a place where timelines touch, then maybe healing is more than remembering. Maybe it's revising. The pain you carry might not be final. It might still be soft clay, being shaped from both ends. Maybe that apology you never gave is still echoing through someone's timeline. Or maybe a moment of courage tomorrow will find its way back into your spine today and help you stand up a little straighter. Of course, this is not how we experience the world in our everyday lives. Your coffee cools, your hair grays. You wake, work, sleep. But beneath the rhythms of routine, particles buzz with mystery. They don't follow our logic. They follow their own. So, what part of your story might still be written in reverse? What part of your childhood is quietly being rewritten by the adult you're becoming? What decisions are you making now that will ripple back and give new meaning to old pain? You may never see the full script, but you are both author and character. Each breath, each kindness, each hesitation, threads tangled through time. Hold that thought like a breath in your chest. And now, let's ask if the mind you trust is the one actually making the choice. The illusion of free will. You feel it when you choose. The moment you pick the red shirt over the blue one, say yes instead of no, or decide to stay when every bone in your body screams to run. It feels like you did that, like you authored that moment from the core of who you are. But what if you didn't? In a quiet lab, somewhere far from where your dreams sleep, a neuroscientist watches a screen. Electrodes map the activity of a brain. A simple task: press a button when you feel the urge. But the data reveals something unsettling. The brain shows signs of decision-making before the person reports being aware of it. By the time you think you've made a choice, your neurons were already humming with intention. It's as if the conscious self is not the commander, but the narrator, telling the story after the ink is already dry. Wait, one voice says, so am I not in control? Maybe you're just watching the movie of your life, with no pause button, the other replies. Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries, but science is beginning to whisper louder. If your choices can be predicted seconds before you're even aware of them, where is freedom hiding? Is it real, or is it just a feeling? And if it's just a feeling, is that enough? Some try to rescue free will by saying, maybe the unconscious is still you. But that raises another question. Who are you, really? The voice that speaks, the silence that listens, the thought, or the one observing the thought? Think back to the last time you hesitated, that fragile pause before saying something vulnerable. Did you choose to pause? Or did a storm of memory, fear, and training rise from the depths and do it for you? If every decision is a product of causes, genetics, upbringing, mood, even the sandwich you skipped at lunch, can any choice be called free? Or is will just the illusion that our programming belongs to us? And yet, maybe there's something beautiful in that mystery. If your mind is a stage where characters appear, fear, hope, reason, desire, then perhaps free will is not about control. Perhaps it's about awareness, watching the actors without needing to be one, seeing the play and knowing it's a play. Do you think we're puppets? The first voice wonders. No. The second says softly, I think we're wind chimes, shaped by what came before, but still capable of making music. So here you are, thinking, watching yourself think, wondering if the thought was yours or just a wave passing through you. And in that very wondering, something shifts. As your mind floats in that liminal space between cause and choice, let yourself breathe. Not because you decided to, but because breath arrives like a gift, just like everything else. Now, as the current of thought drifts onward, we leave behind the question of freedom and enter a realm where even the smallest particles are unsure of where they are. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle. There's a strange comfort in not knowing, like walking through a city you've never been to. No expectations, no map, just the soft hum of streetlights and the rhythm of your footsteps. In that moment, not knowing is freedom. It's presence. Heisenberg didn't set out to unravel certainty, but what he found was unsettling and strangely beautiful, that you can't measure both where something is and how fast it's going. Not at the same time. The universe makes you choose. At the smallest level, particles don't like being pinned down. The closer you get to knowing their location, the more their motion becomes a whisper in the dark. And if you chase their speed, their place in the world becomes a blur. It's like trying to trap moonlight in your hands. A man once leaned over on a train platform and said, "Have you ever noticed how the more you try to make a moment perfect, the less real it feels?" And the woman next to him, soft eyes, tired scarf, just nodded and replied, "Yeah, like when you rehearse a smile too much, it forgets how to be happy." That's what this principle feels like. A warning against forcing clarity where nature prefers mystery. A hint that even reality itself needs a little space to breathe. Heisenberg didn't break physics. He listened to it. Listened as the world whispered, "You may watch, but you cannot fully know." And so, we're left with a universe built on uncertainty. A dance where every step hides the trace of the one before it. A fog that refuses to lift all at once. It's not just particles. It's life. You try to know where you're going, plan it, schedule it. But the more you grip your path with precision, the more your momentum, your flow, slips away. You've felt it, haven't you? When overthinking turns joy into calculation. When trying to be certain becomes a kind of quiet fear. A child once asked her mother, "Why don't we know everything?" And the mother, with gentle humor, replied, "If we did, we'd forget how to wonder." There's wisdom in that, because if everything were certain, would anything be meaningful? If we could measure the soul with a ruler, would we still write poetry? Heisenberg's insight isn't just physics. It's a lesson in surrender. To live is to move through a fog, trusting that what matters will find shape when it's ready. So maybe it's okay to not know exactly what tomorrow holds, to leave some questions unanswered, to let reality keep some of her secrets. Because in uncertainty, we breathe deeper. We see more softly. We listen without expectation. And in the dark, sometimes, we sleep better. Let's drift now, from the delicate blur of what we cannot fully measure, to something even more peculiar. A thought that bends the edges of logic. The idea that nothing might actually be something. Close your eyes. We're not lost, just softly out of focus. And that is enough. The Nothingness Paradox. Try to imagine nothing. Not darkness, not silence, not even a blank canvas, just nothing. But even now, as you try, notice what happens. Your mind gives it shape, a feeling, a void, a placeholder. But a placeholder is something. So how do we grasp true nothingness when the very act of imagining gives it form? This is the essence of the paradox. Nothingness, in its purest form, resists all definition. To think about it is to clothe it in thought. To name it is to give it presence. The moment you try to hold it still, it moves. The second you declare it empty, it becomes filled with the echo of that declaration. Okay, one voice might say in the quiet of a bedroom at midnight, but surely before the Big Bang there was nothing. And another voice might whisper back, but for there to be before, doesn't that require time? For there to be there, doesn't that assume space? Then the silence returns, but not quite as empty as before. The paradox deepens when we realize our minds are not equipped to process true absence. Even the word nothing is a mental construct built from language, experience, and contrast. You know hot because there's cold. You know presence because there's absence. But if absence stands alone, with no opposing reference point, it collapses, like trying to balance a mirror on nothing but air. And yet, here you are, thinking, feeling, existing, in a cosmos filled with complexity, chaos, consciousness. If true nothingness is inconceivable, maybe it's also impossible. Maybe something must always be. Like a ball balanced on the edge of a razor, non-existence may wobble and tip into being. Some thinkers, like Parmenides, argued that nothing cannot exist at all, that being is the only possible state. And if that's true, your existence isn't just a fluke. It's not optional. It's necessary. Like gravity, being pulls at the fabric of logic. Even when we push against it, it answers, "You cannot escape me. You're here because there is no other way." So what does it mean for you, lying in bed, letting these thoughts drift into the soft fog of sleep? Maybe you are the answer to the question nothing could not hold. A ripple in the fabric of an impossible void. Not random, not lost, but inevitable. The thought lingers, strangely comforting. Because if non-existence cannot hold, then maybe you are part of the great momentum of reality itself, carried by logic, sustained by paradox, and held, always, by the truth that something is. Now close your eyes. Let your thoughts dissolve like ink in water. Let go of the struggle to define the absence. And as the edge of awareness softens, let's take the next step. What happens when something never ends? What does it mean to drift not into void, but into infinity? Hilbert's Hotel, Infinite Paradox. In the quiet corridors of midnight thought, let us walk into a hotel that should not exist, but does. Imagine this. You arrive at a grand hotel under an eternal night sky. Its marble lobby stretches endlessly, its chandelier never stops shimmering, and the front desk clerk greets you with a calm smile. But there's a strange twist. Every room in this hotel is occupied. Every single one. Yet somehow, they still have space for you. Welcome to Hilbert's Hotel, a paradoxical place dreamt up by mathematician David Hilbert to stretch our minds around the unsettling nature of infinity. This isn't just a metaphor. It's a confrontation with the way we assume the universe should behave. In a world of finite logic, full means no vacancy. But in the realm of the infinite, full can still mean open. Picture the setup. Infinite rooms, numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on forever. All are occupied. Then, a new guest arrives. What does the hotel do? It simply shifts every guest to the next room. Guest 1 to room 2, guest 2 to room 3, and so on. Room 1 is now empty. Voila, the newcomer has a place to stay. And if infinitely many guests showed up, no problem. Just move each current guest to double their room number. Guest 1 to room 2, guest 2 to room 4, guest 3 to room 6. Suddenly, all odd-numbered rooms are free, making space for the newcomers. Infinity doesn't play by our rules. Adding more doesn't change its size. Subtracting doesn't reduce it. It's not a number, it's a behavior, a shape of possibility, a whisper that the universe might be far stranger than we can ever map. Now imagine this idea not as a hotel, but as time itself, or space, or your own identity. What if your existence, your timeline, is just one room among infinite others? Not in the future, not in the past, but side by side, parallel. Infinite versions of you, each making slightly different choices, each checking into slightly different rooms of the same eternal structure. One version of you stayed, another walked away, one forgave, one held the grudge, one said yes, one said no, and 100,000 versions remained undecided. All these guests, they live in Hilbert's hallway of souls. Every version of you is a thread in the infinite fabric. None cancels the other. None is more real. In infinity, they all belong. Wait, someone might ask. If I'm infinite, does that mean I'm everywhere? Am I guest, room, and hallway? And perhaps the answer is yes. Because in an infinite system, boundaries dissolve. You are the dreamer, and the dream, the hallway and the door, the echo and the silence. A gentle conversation floats in the stillness of thought. Do you think there's a version of me that did everything right? Maybe. But then again, there's probably one that never needed to. And if that version exists, what about the one that still feels lost? Then we hold space for them, because in infinity, there's room for every version of you. Let that settle. Let it breathe. Now step softly. The infinite hallway continues, and down its never-ending stretch, perhaps another version of you is walking it, right now, toward the next paradox, toward the next door, toward another truth. The many worlds interpretation. Somewhere, a man walks into a bookstore he passed by today. In that world, he reads a poem that softens the way he speaks to his father. In another, he never sees the store at all, because he paused at the corner to pet a dog. And in yet another, he's not even born. All of them are you. This is not a fairy tale. It's one of quantum mechanics' most provocative whispers, the many worlds interpretation. It tells us that every decision you didn't make still echoes somewhere, not in memory, but in reality, a real world, a real path, a real version of you, breathing somewhere just beyond this one. A soft knock. Hey, a voice says at the doorway. Did you already pour the tea? Not yet. Was just thinking about choices. Again? The voice smiles. You know, in another universe, I poured it first. In this theory, reality doesn't collapse into one version. It expands. It branches like a tree, relentlessly, quietly, infinitely. Every fork you've stood at, it led to both paths. One version of you stayed, one version left, one confessed, one walked away, one never asked the question. One did. All of them exist, simultaneously, intertwined by a quantum web we can't touch, but somehow can feel. That flutter of what if, that tug behind the ribs, the silent echo of the version that didn't unfold. You may ask, why don't we see them? Why don't we meet our other selves in the hallway or catch them blinking back in the mirror? A physicist might say, because each world decoheres, separating, clean, and complete into its own story. No overlap, no interference, like dreams that vanish when the alarm sounds, even though they were vivid, even though they mattered. But deep down, we remember something, a scent, a gesture, a face we've never seen that feels familiar. The many worlds interpretation doesn't just flirt with science, it sways with psychology, with longing, with identity, because if every version of you is real, then who are you? A man once sat quietly at a bus stop, watching strangers walk by. His friend leaned beside him and said, "Do you ever think there's another version of you that took the train instead?" He nodded. "Yeah, and maybe that version isn't stuck wondering if he made the right call." His friend smiled. "Or maybe he's wondering about you." The truth is gentle and heavy. You are not one thing. You are a constellation of potentials. This version of you, here in this moment, is simply the branch you're currently resting on, the breath you're taking now, the thought you're wrapping yourself around. And just like a tree doesn't grieve its other leaves, you don't have to mourn your other lives. You are this life. You are this angle, this moment, this tender unfolding. Still, the question curls around your ankles as you lie there. Who decides which version you wake up in? And if there are infinite yous, then what holds all of them together? Is there something beneath identity, a rhythm or a pulse, that all yourselves share? If so, what you call you might not be a single name, but a song sung in many keys. So let this thought ripple outward now, not like a conclusion, but like a hand brushing over water. Because next, we'll ask what lies beneath even the branches. We'll question the fabric, the trembling stage, upon which all versions of you dance. And sleep, if it comes, can take you wherever it will. In some world, you're already there. Spacetime is an illusion, a faint rustling outside your window, a whisper of wind bending the trees. You tell yourself, it's night. I'm here. The clock ticks forward. All is well. But what if none of that? Space, time, the ticking, were real? Not as you believe it to be. Not as you've always felt it in your bones. A gentle voice enters your mind, like a companion who's been walking beside you all along. You ever get that feeling, she says, where you think you've lived a moment before, but can't place when or where? He laughs, not mockingly, but with that warm recognition we reserve for thoughts we've never dared to say aloud. Yeah, like déjà vu with no anchor. Maybe we were never supposed to place it, because it never happened the first time. Their conversation fades into silence, like footsteps disappearing into fog. Because in the quiet corners of physics, some believe that time doesn't actually flow, that it doesn't even exist, not in the way our minds demand. Theories like loop quantum gravity suggest that what we call time is just a byproduct, like a shadow cast by something far more fundamental. Not a ticking clock, not a moving hand, but the unfolding of hidden relationships. In these ideas, the universe isn't built on distance or duration, but on information. Pure, raw, structureless logic. Space doesn't stretch, it emerges. Time doesn't move, it arises. Like mist lifting from a lake at dawn, space-time might only be a temporary veil, one that flickers when we look too closely. And that brings us to a quiet question, the kind that finds you only when the lights are low. If space and time are illusions, where exactly are you? Not your street, not your room, not even your memories, but the you behind all those ideas, the you who doesn't need coordinates to exist. He speaks again, voice hushed, as if they're now curled under blankets, watching ceiling shadows dance. So if this isn't real space, And this moment isn't real time. Are we just floating in some abstract math? She doesn't answer right away. She just reaches across the invisible gap between them, one that may not even exist, and says, maybe we're not floating. Maybe we are the math, and it's dreaming us. Outside, the wind has settled. The walls around you feel softer, less certain, like a stage set dimmed for the night. The room, the moment, the sense of being here, all of it feels suddenly like a story you've been telling yourself. Not a lie, just a comforting plot, a lullaby of physics. Because if space-time is just a skin stretched over something deeper, then perhaps what you feel now, that loosening of boundaries, that melting of past and future, isn't confusion. It's recognition. The recognition that you've never truly needed to be somewhere. That now might be a costume stitched by your brain to keep you calm. And it worked, didn't it? Even if it's all a mask. She yawns. I guess if time isn't real, she murmurs, then there's no such thing as being late to your own life. He smiles with closed eyes. Then I'm right on time. And with that, we drift. Beyond here, beyond now, into the next dream, where reality may not be space-time, but something stranger, something made of math. Rest with that thought. Let it settle. Let it hum. And when you're ready, we'll continue our descent into the arithmetic of existence. The mathematical universe hypothesis. Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt something symmetrical? As if the stars weren't scattered, but placed? Like an equation too vast to read, but too perfect to deny? That feeling, that strange harmony, isn't just poetry. It may be the very foundation of everything. According to physicist Max Tegmark, the universe doesn't merely obey mathematical laws. It is mathematics. Every corner of the cosmos, every whisper of wind, every neuron firing in your brain could all be made of numbers, not described by them, made of them. So you're saying I'm math? Yes, one voice might say softly. You're not like a pattern. You are one. A moment of silence lingers. But I laugh, I cry, my heart breaks. And so does a waveform, the other replies, when it's disrupted. The mathematical universe hypothesis proposes that the truest language of reality isn't English or Mandarin, not even music, but cold, abstract mathematics. Not just the physics of how a ball falls or how light bends, but the very essence of being. Your skin could be vectors, your emotions, oscillations, your love, an elegant curve unfolding across space-time. This sounds haunting, because if everything is numbers, where is the soul? Where is the warmth? But maybe that's the wrong question. What if the soul is simply the most graceful solution in a messy system of equations? What if the warmth we feel isn't in spite of the numbers, but because of them? Even beauty itself becomes less random in this view. A sunset isn't just pleasing, it's geometry, ratios of light frequencies, symmetry in the spread of clouds, golden spirals in your iris as it reflects the orange sky. Love could be resonance between equations, the way two waveforms align. Tragedy, an equation with no solution, looping forever. And when you cry at a song, maybe it's not emotion layered on top of math. Maybe it is math, resonating in you, finding the frequency of your hidden ache. You know what's strange? One voice might ask in the dark. What? That if I'm just numbers, why do I still feel real? Maybe reality is what it feels like to be a formula solved correctly. This way of seeing doesn't rob us of meaning. It reframes it. It whispers that behind every breath is a structure, a code, a rhythm. And maybe we're not lost in randomness, but dancing to a silent score written long before we were born. But that brings us to the final, lingering question, the one that glows like a quiet ember behind your eyes as sleep creeps in. If the universe is mathematics, then who's solving the equation? Close your eyes. Let that thought hum like a distant bell in the back of your mind, because next, we descend even deeper into the ones and zeros behind the mirror, into the idea that maybe, just maybe, the universe isn't being lived. It's being calculated. Solipsism, the mind alone. What if everything you've ever known, every voice, every face, every memory, was nothing more than the echo of your own mind? Not a dream exactly, but a universe woven entirely from the threads of your consciousness. This is the unsettling core of solipsism, the philosophical notion that only your mind can be known to exist with certainty. Everything else, from the sound of raindrops on your window to the person you believe is sitting beside you, may be an illusion. "Hey," a voice says beside you, gentle, curious. "Do you ever wonder if I'm real?" You glance at them. You smile. "Sometimes I wonder if I made you up just to feel less alone." They laugh. "Well then, I guess I'm doing my job." And in that moment, comforting and strange, you're no closer to the answer. Because if this world is a projection of your thoughts, then so is the conversation you're having right now. Every response, every breeze, every heartbeat in another chest could be the silent rhythm of your own dream, misinterpreted as connection. Solipsism doesn't accuse the world of being false. It simply doubts that you can prove it is not. Descartes famously said, "I think, therefore I am." But he never added, "I think, therefore others are." The chair you're sitting on, you feel it, but sensation is just a signal in your brain. The love you receive from others, it warms you. But is warmth not also just perception? So what happens if the world disappears when you close your eyes? Or worse, what if it was never there to begin with? This isn't madness. It's a quiet meditation at the edge of certainty, a philosophical candle flickering in the endless hallway of introspection. If no mind exists but your own, then the universe becomes not a shared space, but a mirror. Every struggle you witness, every joy you celebrate, every injustice you weep over, these may simply be inner monologues dressed as external events. But doesn't that feel lonely? "Wouldn't it be terrifying?" your friend asks, fingers tracing invisible lines on the table. "To be the only one here?" You breathe in, unsure. Or maybe freeing, like knowing you're the painter and the painting. They nod slowly. And if it's all you, then you can never truly be abandoned, never truly unloved. That idea rests soft against your soul. Solipsism, for all its unsettling implications, doesn't only pose a threat, it also opens a door. If you are the dreamer of this world, you are never outside of it. The tree is your longing for peace. The rain, your tears. The kindness of others, your own gentleness reflected back in disguise. And so, as your eyelids grow heavier, and the voice reading this begins to blur into the hum of sleep, you might wonder, if the world is your creation, then maybe you made it beautiful on purpose. Take one last breath tonight, not to prove that others exist, but to know that you do. And now, as you drift toward dreams, let's imagine something gentler than solitude, not being alone, but being everything. Non-duality. It starts as a quiet confusion, like waking up from a dream and not knowing where your skin ends and the room begins. You touch the sheets. But was it you touching them, or were they touching you? Somewhere deep in Eastern thought, there's a whisper. It says, You are not separate from what you see. There is no wall between the eye and the tree, no boundary between the voice and the ear. You and the world are not two. In this space of non-duality, something dissolves. The old habit of saying, "That is out there, and I am in here." The sharp line that divides the feeler from the felt, the thinker from the thought, it begins to blur like ink in water. A barista hands you a coffee and smiles. You say thank you. But who is thanking whom? Is it your mouth, or is it life itself folding in and greeting another curve of itself? A woman sits quietly in the subway, watching a child sleep on her shoulder. And in the stillness, for a moment, she forgets who is who. She just feels warmth, a heartbeat that doesn't need a name, just being. So you're saying I'm the world. Not exactly. I'm saying there was never a world without you to witness it, and never a you without the world to reflect it. This isn't philosophy to be solved. It's more like perfume, something you notice by scent, not logic, a feeling that arises when you stop insisting the mirror is not you. Try this. The next time someone laughs, listen carefully. Does the laughter land outside you, or does something inside you lift with it? Can you even find the edge between the sound and your response? It's like walking barefoot through a shallow stream. The coolness wraps your foot, but your foot also shapes the stream. Are you the shape or the shaper, or just the dance between them? Sometimes a stranger holds the door and says, "Looks like the timing was perfect." You smile back and feel an odd sense of connection. Not to them as a person, but to the moment, the choreography of now. You were the note, and they were the echo, and maybe neither came first. Non-duality isn't saying nothing is real. It's saying that the realness isn't over there or in here. It's not in things or thoughts, but in the unfolding between them. When a wave rises on the ocean, it's tempting to name it. Call it individual. But the wave never left the water. It was always the ocean, moving differently. And when it falls back, nothing is lost, just a return to the stillness that never broke. Your worries, too, may be waves, brief curves in a vast awareness, not separate, not permanent, just forms rising and falling. What happens when we stop thinking we're the subject? Then everything speaks, and nothing needs permission to belong. You may feel this most in moments of silence, when words fail, but understanding deepens. When you look at someone without a story, just a shared breath, and a sense that whatever you thought was missing was never apart from you. Non-duality is not a belief. It's a soft erasure, a letting go of the need to name what never needed to be divided. There is no you here and world there, only this unfolding moment wearing your face. Even now, this voice in your ears, whose voice is it really? Yours? Mine? Or simply the sound of thought, remembering itself? Let that dissolve gently within you, not to lose yourself, but to remember, you were never separate. And now, let's walk into a stranger idea, one that carries a box and a cat, both alive and not. Schrödinger's cat. It begins with a box, silent, closed, and inside a cat, neither meowing nor still, just waiting. Not for food, not for affection, but for you. Erwin Schrödinger didn't hate cats. He wasn't cruel. What he proposed was a mirror, a reflection of the absurd logic hiding at the heart of quantum mechanics. According to the theory of superposition, particles can exist in multiple states at once, until they're observed, until someone looks. And so, he asked, what if we scaled this up? What if we placed something real, something warm and breathing, into a quantum trap? The cat in the box, sealed with a quantum device, exists in a strange twilight state, both alive and dead. Not metaphorically, not figuratively, but truly, simultaneously, both. The cat is not just hidden from your view. Its very reality is suspended, hanging, until you open the box, until you observe. Now imagine that, a universe that doesn't commit, a reality that hesitates. Wait, one voice asks quietly in a bedroom. So, nothing is real until we see it? Her partner shifts, half awake. Maybe not real. Maybe it's just potential, waiting to be chosen. So if I close my eyes, yeah, does the world disappear? He laughs gently. I think maybe it waits for you. This is the haunting beauty of Schrödinger's idea. Not that the cat is alive or dead, but that it is somehow both. And that reality needs you to decide, to look, to confirm, to collapse the wave of infinite possibility into a single outcome. But here's where the thought starts to ache. What about the things you never look at, the stories you never hear, the rooms you'll never enter? Do they hum quietly in potential just like that cat? Does reality bloom only where attention lands, like a spotlight on a vast, dark stage? In quantum terms, the universe behaves not like a fixed photograph, but like a probability cloud, a fog of maybes, a theater of unfinished scenes until someone opens the curtain, until someone peeks into the box. It's a terrifying intimacy, isn't it? To think the world needs your gaze to exist, but also a strange comfort. You matter, not just because you observe, but because you bring things into being. And now, with that fragile awareness resting gently in your mind, picture the box again. Closed, silent, infinite. Not just a cat, but you, your dreams, your fears, all quietly pulsing in probability, until the moment of choice, until the act of seeing. So, breathe slowly, and let that image dissolve like fog in morning light, because in the next thought, we'll ask something even stranger. Can anything truly begin? Or has it always been waiting, just like the cat? The paradox of the first cause. Hey, can I ask you something weird? Sure, she said, stirring her tea slowly. What started all this? Like everything. The universe. Time. You and me talking right now. He didn't expect an answer. Not a real one. Just the familiar comfort of wondering together. Two minds leaning into the silence beyond the stars. This is the ancient dilemma, the first cause. A puzzle so old, even the stars seem young beside it. If everything must come from something, if every fire needs a spark, every ripple needs a stone, then what lit the very first flame? What stood at the beginning of beginnings? Trace reality backward. The tree came from a seed, the seed from a tree, the child from the parent from their parent. Galaxies from gravity, gravity from mass, mass from particles, particles from what? How far back do you go before the trail ends or begins again in a circle? If everything has a cause, and every cause has its own cause, we end up with an infinite staircase spiraling into the dark. But infinity isn't a solution. It's a postponement. Eventually, we want to touch something solid, something that simply is. A first cause that doesn't need a cause. But then, what makes that thing so special? Why does it get to just be? Is it God? Is it the universe itself? Is it a law so deeply embedded in logic that we can't even peel it away? I mean, she says, tapping her cup, what if the universe just started itself? No reason. No outside force. Just appeared. But nothing comes from nothing, he replies. That's the rule, right? She shrugs, as if to say, maybe the rules didn't exist until something broke them. Maybe the very idea of nothing is flawed, like trying to imagine a Jesus without ever having heard a sound. Because if something exists now, then non-existence must have lost the fight. Or perhaps there never was a first moment. Perhaps time folds in on itself like a serpent devouring its tail. The end births the beginning. The Big Bang isn't the start, but just the latest breath in an eternal inhale. That would mean we're not climbing up from a past. We're spinning within a loop, riding a wave with no shore. He looks up at the night sky, dotted with stars that died before they could be wished upon. What if the universe caused itself? He whispers. She answers with a question. Then who are we in that story? The result or the reason? Their voices fade into the air like echoes in a hallway with no doors, only walls of mystery stretching forever, behind and ahead. And just as your mind begins to settle with the weight of that thought, another tremor begins. Because next, we'll explore whether this hallway is even real, or if you're walking through a simulation coded not by purpose, but by probability. Computational universe theory. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this: the stars, the breath in your lungs, the ache in your heart, all lines of code in a program older than time. What if every law of nature is just a line in an algorithm, playing out with precision in a cosmic simulation too vast for us to comprehend? Some physicists believe this might not be imagination, but reality. The computational universe. Theory suggests that the universe isn't just describable by mathematics, it is mathematics. Or more precisely, it is computation. Every quark, every photon, every black hole reduced to bits, not metaphorically, but literally. The universe, in this view, is like a computer running an unfathomably complex code. What we perceive as space and time, merely the scaffolding of a digital grid. What we interpret as mass and energy, just variables in a vast equation. Even the speed of light, once thought to be a fundamental cosmic speed limit, could be nothing more than the processor speed of the system we call reality. In a quiet apartment, a woman stares out her window at the city lights. Do you think, she asks softly, that maybe we're part of something running in the background? Like background apps in someone's phone? Her friend, curled on the couch with a cup of tea, chuckles. So you're saying we're NPCs? Maybe not non-playable, she murmurs, but definitely pre-coded. It's a haunting idea, isn't it? That free will might be an illusion, that we could simply be executing commands, thoughts we didn't choose, dreams we were programmed to have, paths we were always meant to walk. The lines between chance and instruction blur. The very fabric of randomness could just be code we haven't yet decrypted. And yet, if this is a machine, who or what built it? Is there a programmer? A divine coder typing with intention? Or is the program itself autonomous, infinite recursion with no origin? Maybe there is no who. Maybe this universe was not designed, just running, a loop, a cycle, a glitchless operation, until something breaks. And that brings us to the most fragile question of all. What happens when the program glitches? The woman by the window leans back. Sometimes I feel like I've lived this moment before. Not déjà vu exactly. More like a memory the program forgot to delete. Her friend nods slowly. Or a line of corrupted code, skipping playback. Perhaps those déjà vu moments, those dreams that feel too real, those impossible coincidences that make you pause. Maybe they're not spiritual or psychological phenomena. Maybe they are runtime errors. Maybe the simulation stutters, and in that tiny pause, that flicker, you catch a glimpse behind the curtain. But even if this reality is computed, even if you are made of bits and logic gates, there is something oddly comforting in it, a kind of elegance, because every smile, every sunset, every heartbeat becomes part of a code more beautiful than any human could write, a code that loops, evolves, remembers. Now breathe deeply. You are not lost in this program, you are the program, and maybe, just maybe, you can recompile your code. Let's follow that thread and step into a paradox where the mind itself becomes the architect. Quantum decoherence and collapse. Somewhere between the flicker of your blinking and the hum of your ceiling fan, something chooses, not you, not me, but something. A particle that had every possible future, now stands still in one. Why this one? Quantum decoherence sounds technical, but it's strangely tender when you feel it. It says that particles, tiny things dancing with infinite freedom, don't become real because someone looks at them. They collapse into certainty because the world touches them. A breeze, a sound, a photon brushing by, the way life brushes by us in the smallest moments and somehow changes everything. Did you mean to choose this cafe? One person asks, sliding into the last open seat across from someone else. No, the other smiles, but now that I'm here, it feels like I did. That's decoherence in action. 1,000 options quietly fading, not out of sight, but out of potential. Not because you made a choice, but because the world did it with you. The chair was empty. The light was green. Someone said yes. 1 billion paths fell away, and now you're here. But here's the unsettling part. We don't really know why it happens. We know the math. We know the patterns. We even know when it will probably occur. But the final moment, when all that could be, becomes all that is, that moment is a mystery. Like waking up in the middle of a conversation and not knowing how it started. If every path was possible, someone murmurs in a quiet kitchen, pouring tea. Why do I keep ending up in this one? Their friend replies, drying dishes. Maybe this path needs you most. That's the haunting thought. If the universe is a song of probabilities, then reality is the verse that keeps getting sung, not because it's right, just because it harmonized best with the environment. So what, then, is real? If everything is just a wave of maybes, and what we see is what's left after interference, after collision, are we truly seeing truth? or just the wreckage of all the options that didn't make it. A man once waited at a crosswalk long after the light turned green. Someone asked, "Are you going?" He replied, "I'm still deciding which version of me should step forward." Perhaps we're all like that man, unknowingly paused in the hallway of what might have been, and the moment our foot lands, the rest of us vanish, or merge, or shatter into fragments we'll never meet. Quantum collapse is not violent. It's quiet, like a sigh when no one's listening, or a leaf finally letting go, not because it's autumn, but because the breeze came just right. And yet, that single leaf, that quiet breath, that moment of collapse, is everything. It becomes the world we trust, the faces we love, the mirror we believe. It holds us steady, even as the foundation underneath may have once been infinite uncertainty. You ever look back and think, that one phone call changed my whole life? Or, what if I had turned left instead of right? Decoherence doesn't answer those questions. It just smiles and says, "You didn't, but something else might have." And that something else? It's not gone. It's just unchosen, still humming somewhere, like a shadow that never touches ground. As you rest now, let your thoughts tumble softly into this. Maybe life isn't a solid wall. Maybe it's a curtain, fluttering slightly. And every time it brushes your skin, one more possibility collapses gently into being. Let your body relax. Let the rhythm slow. There's no need to hold on so tightly to what's real, because even reality might be just a soft decision the universe made, in the dark, while whispering your name. And now, drift with me into the next thought, where that whisper becomes a dream. Not yours, not mine, but perhaps the universe's own. Panpsychism. Consciousness is everywhere. A light flickers behind your eyelids, not the kind that startles, but the kind that pulses gently, like a memory returning before it's asked. You don't know why it comforts you, but it does. There's a theory quietly murmured in the back corners of philosophy and quantum physics that perhaps your mind is not confined to your skull. That thought itself is not yours in the way you've been told, but shared, like sunlight on leaves. That even this pillow beneath you and the humming air conditioner beside you might be having an experience of their own. Panpsychism. A word that slips like silk across the tongue and leaves behind a mystery. It says consciousness isn't a byproduct of complexity. It isn't something that evolved from meat and neurons. It's woven into the fabric of the universe, like gravity or time. It's always been here. In this worldview, even the smallest electron hums with a kind of proto-experience, not like yours, not joy or sadness, not language or memory, but something. A whisper, a flicker, an awareness that rests like dew on the surface of all things. Do you ever feel like your phone knows when you're about to touch it? One voice asks quietly, like it's embarrassed. The other pauses before answering. Yeah. Or when I drop something, it lands like it meant to, like it wanted to go there. They laugh softly, not to mock the idea, but because it feels too true to argue with. As if the world has been hinting at this all along. If panpsychism is true, then you've never been alone. Not even once. The glass of water on your nightstand is not just a tool. The wood beneath your bed, the wind outside your window, the dust caught in the curtain folds, each may carry the faintest echo of consciousness. A kind of presence, not quite watching, but being with you. And maybe that's why silence feels full, not empty. Maybe that's why your breath slows when you walk under trees, or why you pause before touching something ancient. Because on some unconscious level, you're picking up a resonance, a communion between your awareness and the awareness braided into everything else. This doesn't mean your thoughts control the universe. It doesn't mean your phone is alive or your shoes have dreams. But it does mean your thoughts belong. They echo across a field that includes more than you. You, the bed, the walls, the atoms in the air. A choir of being. One evening, at a late cafe, a stranger leaned in as if sharing a secret not meant for the harshness of daylight. They said, "I think we're all just tiny lamps plugged into the same current. We flicker separately, but the power's the same." You nodded without needing to understand, because somewhere deep inside, it rang true. Not logical, just true. And now, lying here, the air still and kind, it's okay to believe that thought again, to let go of the need to prove it. The universe may not speak English or math or science, but it feels, and if it feels, it listens. And if it listens, it means this breath, your breath, is not lost. It's witnessed, mirrored, joined. You are not a guest in this world. You are the world, momentarily aware of itself. So close your eyes now. Let that awareness loosen its grip. Let it scatter gently across the stars like pollen in wind. Let the ripple carry you into the next space where thought unravels and logic bows its head to mystery. Gödel's Incompleteness Theorem. Somewhere in the folds of a midnight blanket, your mind floats, quiet now, but still tracing the edges of questions you never meant to ask out loud. A voice might say, even math, sweet, unshaken math, can't explain itself. And that's not philosophy. It's a fact carved by a man named Gödel. He looked into the mirror of logic and found that it cracked, that within any system of rules, no matter how perfect, there will always be a truth that cannot be proven, a whisper that lives just beyond the reach of proof. So, what is truth then, if even our purest language, numbers, can't catch it? Earlier today, two people sat on a bench near a coffee stand. One of them said, "Do you think everything has a reason?" The other smiled, almost like a shrug, and replied, "Only when I'm in the mood to believe it." It wasn't sarcasm. It was tenderness, born from the quiet understanding that some answers only matter when the heart is ready for them. And maybe that's the echo Gödel left behind, the idea that some truths don't wait to be proven. They just are. Close your eyes and think about this. If you spent your whole life chasing certainty, only to learn that certainty is a hallway with no final door, would you still walk it? There's a strange kind of comfort in that. A soft permission to stop trying so hard to know everything, to leave some corners of life unlit and still feel safe. Because if the universe itself holds riddles it cannot solve, then maybe you're not lost. Maybe you're just normal. A woman once asked a stranger at a bookstore, "Sorry, is this seat taken?" He looked up and said, "It is now, and it's yours." Nothing special. But in that moment, they both felt like they'd unlocked a truth no equation could write. And isn't that the quiet punchline? That the things which matter most, comfort, beauty, laughter, grief, aren't easily mapped? A kiss on the cheek, the way your dog sighs before sleep, the twinge in your chest when a certain song plays, none of it proves anything, but all of it is real. So let go a little. Not of curiosity, but of the need to trap it. Let your thoughts tumble, not to land, but to drift. Because Gödel wasn't offering despair. He was offering wonder. He was saying, there are truths in you that need no stamp of approval. And now, as your breath softens and your thoughts dissolve into the gentle hum behind your forehead, ask yourself, what if the fact that you don't know everything is what makes you most alive? You've walked this path before, in another place, in another dream. You've wondered the same questions with different words, and something in you remembers. So as your body grows still and your mind lets go, know this: some doors don't open from the inside, and that's okay, because not all truths need unlocking. Some, like you, simply need rest. Let's drift now into the next mystery, the next impossibility, a place where time may not even be real. Eternal return, a gentle loop of existence. The night softens everything, walls blur, time forgets its edges. And in this quiet, a question settles beside you, not urgent, just curious. What if this moment has already happened before? Somewhere between philosophy and a whisper, Nietzsche offered the idea of the eternal return. Not a grand prophecy, but a subtle suggestion that time isn't a line, but a circle. That your life, every sigh, every embrace, every step you took barefoot across the hallway floor, will happen again and again. Not just similar lives, the same one. Every blink, every breath. So, we're stuck? Someone might ask, lifting a cup of tea halfway to their lips. No, the other might say, glancing out a window where nothing moves. We're practiced. The difference between imprisonment and intimacy is choice. If you had to live this life again, endlessly, would you curse it or cherish it? Would the coffee taste sweeter if it were your 1,000th cup? Would that moment you held someone's hand on the bus feel more sacred if you knew it would happen again in the exact same shade of afternoon light? In this loop, nothing is ever truly lost. Not the way your parent once called your name. Not the way rain sounds when you're 20 and restless. If time spins, not marches, then every version of you still exists, gently overlapping like ripples in a pond that never dries. Two strangers once passed each other under a flickering streetlight. One turned and said, "You look familiar." The other smiled. Maybe we've met before, or maybe we will. The beauty of the eternal return isn't that it offers control, it's that it offers depth. You begin to treat your day not as a rehearsal, but as a final performance that never ends. Not because it's incomplete, but because it's so complete, it deserves repetition. Still, a question hangs in the air like steam over a mirror. If this all happens again, does it lessen its meaning or deepen it? A mother humming the same lullaby each night doesn't love her child less with each verse. She loves them more. The melody becomes sacred, not despite the repetition, but because of it. Now, let that thought wind gently around you. Let the silence that follows feel less like an absence and more like a return. A quiet reminder that even the spaces between things are part of the song. And as your mind circles slowly, like a carousel of memory and moment, prepare to meet yourself again. Not the self from today, but the self watching you from the other side of the mirror, where time folds and everything begins again. The mirror universe. There's a quiet theory, nestled deep in the corners of modern physics. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, but it waits, still, silent, patient. It whispers that everything you are might also exist in reverse, a mirrored you, a universe that moves backward as you go forward, where time folds like a ribbon, and every heartbeat here echoes in reverse. Somewhere else. Two women pause in front of a bakery window. One of them, pointing at a tart, laughs. "Déjà vu again," she says. "Didn't we already have this conversation last week?" The other shrugs, smiling. "Or maybe next week." That's the kind of thing this theory suggests. A world parallel to ours, but inverted. Not just in space, but in time. where your choices are unmade as they are made, where your smile recedes just as it forms, where the raindrop that just landed on your hand is lifting away from its mirrored twin. If that mirrored world exists, it means that for every gesture you've offered, a hand held, a tear wiped, a door left open, there might be a perfect echo, not a copy, not a clone, but a counterpart who reflects your existence without ever knowing you. A man leans over to tie his shoe on a subway platform. Just behind him, a stranger helps steady his falling backpack. They never speak. But later, one of them wonders why that moment felt familiar, like something slipping through the cracks of certainty. So here's the gentle fracture. If this mirrored self exists, walking in reverse through time, then who is dreaming whom? Are you the original or the reflection? Is your day unfolding forward or being remembered backward by another? You begin to question whether the world around you is as solid as you believed. Maybe your footsteps are echoes. Maybe your breath is a reply. Maybe everything you love is both coming and going at once. Let that possibility hum softly now. Let it fog the mirror just enough that your own eyes begin to disappear behind the glass. And as that mirror slowly fogs, we shift into the next question. A tender, dizzying wonder. What if all this self, this world, this story, isn't yours at all, but someone else's hallucination in the dark? Sleep is near. Let it come. Let it take the reflection, or the real, whichever one you are. Reality as a controlled hallucination. You've probably walked into a room and felt something was off without knowing why. A picture tilted ever so slightly. A familiar scent you can't place. And yet your mind fills in the blanks, paints over the gaps, and lets you move on. That's not just intuition. It's perception, playing dress up with what's really there. A soft voice, in a cafe at closing time, leans across the counter and says, "Funny, isn't it? How we all think we're seeing the same world. And maybe that's the twist. We're not." Neuroscientist Anil Seth calls it a controlled hallucination. Not chaos, not delusion, but a dance. Your brain doesn't passively record the world like a camera. It predicts it, shapes it, adjusts it with each new breath of data. Reality becomes a negotiation between expectation and sensation, between what's out there and what's already in you. There's something humbling about that, isn't there? You think you're seeing a chair, but you're seeing your idea of a chair, filtered through memory, lit by past experience, sculpted by neurons who think they've seen it before. And when something surprises you, a loud bang, a sudden laugh, you're not reacting to what is, but to what shouldn't be. A man at the bus stop shifts his weight and smiles. "Sorry, I thought you were someone I knew." But maybe, in his world, you were, just for a second. So, what does that make the world? Is there an objective truth beneath all our projections? Or are we co-dreaming, each of us steering our hallucination into a shared middle? Sometimes, you pause while brushing your teeth and catch your reflection blinking back, and it feels delayed, offbeat, not wrong, just unsynced, like you're watching someone else play you. The more you try to grasp what's real, the slipperier it gets, like fog on glass. The truth stays hidden, but your brain, ever so faithfully, draws a face on the steam and says, "Here, this is enough for now." And maybe it is. Two strangers passing in a hallway exchange a glance, nod, and move on. No words. But something was understood. A shared hallucination, briefly in tune. So tonight, as your thoughts begin to settle, loosen your grip a little. Let the edges blur. Let the certainty soften. It's not deception, it's participation. You're not just witnessing the world, you're making it. And now, let that shared dream dissolve into mist. Feel the silence between your thoughts and listen to what it's trying to say. Frequency of consciousness. They say some things aren't seen, only felt. Like the thrum in your chest when silence gets too loud, or the faint static in the air just before someone speaks your name. Beneath the noise of thought, beneath even emotion, there's something else, quieter. A pulse, a rhythm, a frequency not heard but known. Do you ever feel like you're in sync with the day? One man asked, setting his cup on the cafe table. The other looked up and smiled. Only when the music matches my walk to the train. What if that rhythm isn't just mood, but mind itself? Some scientists suggest our consciousness could be less like a light bulb and more like a radio. That brain waves, the heartbeat of matter, and even space itself all hum at different frequencies. And maybe, just maybe, what we call awareness is what happens when those frequencies resonate, like a perfect chord in a silent room. And if that's true, are you the signal, or are you the station picking it up? I've been thinking, the barista said as she wiped the counter. Maybe some people just can't tune into each other. The older man nodded, tapping his phone screen. That's why some conversations sound like static. There's a strange comfort in that. If consciousness is a kind of broadcast, then perhaps you're never truly isolated, just momentarily out of range. Perhaps your moments of deep connection, those flashes where someone just gets you without needing words, are when two minds momentarily share a signal, like two violins vibrating in sympathy across a room. And maybe that's why certain places feel sacred without reason. A beach at twilight, an empty church with its door ajar, or the quiet corner of a library where even thoughts seem to whisper. Something aligns, not logically, but vibrationally. A man once stepped into a bookstore and paused at the threshold. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. "Silence?" the clerk asked. "No," he said. "Something beneath it. That something is the mystery. If your mind is a receiver, it begs a gentle question. Who's broadcasting? Is it the universe, a collective dream, or something stranger, like your future self calling backward through time? Maybe that's why déjà vu clings like perfume in a room you've never entered. Why sometimes you feel watched, even when you're alone. Because consciousness, like a frequency, doesn't care for walls. It echoes, reflects, finds cracks. And perhaps death itself is not an end, but a retuning. "When my dog passed," she said softly, folding laundry, "I still heard his paws for weeks." Her friend didn't flinch. Some bonds don't vanish, they shift wavelength. And now, let that thought settle. If you're not a body with thoughts, but a frequency passing through one, then stillness is not absence, it's tuning in. Close your eyes, not to shut the world out, but to feel what's underneath, the quiet hum behind thought, the thread between all things. Stay here, just long enough for the static to soften. And when you're ready, we'll leave behind the wave and drift into the field that carries every wave, the one that holds all things, even sleep. You can come back anytime, but for now, rest. The quantum field. Close your eyes for a moment, not to shut the world out, but to feel what's beneath it. The hum beneath the noise, the stillness beneath the storm. Imagine lying on the surface of a vast, endless ocean. But this ocean doesn't roar, it doesn't wave, it doesn't crash against anything. It just is, silent, invisible, yet it holds everything. That's the quantum field. It sounds abstract, but it might be the most real thing there is. Modern physics tells us that the world we touch, hear, and see isn't built from little pieces like Lego bricks. It's built from something far stranger, something more delicate. According to quantum field theory, what we call particles, electrons, photons, quarks, aren't solid things at all. They're tiny ripples, just vibrations rising out of invisible fields that spread across all of space, always present, even in what we think of as a vacuum. So, we're not really made of stuff? One voice asks, drowsily, like someone questioning reality just before falling asleep. No. The other replies gently, as if revealing a secret. We're made of movement, of energy dancing in place. You're not a thing. You're a temporary song. A breeze doesn't leave a mark. A wave doesn't last. And yet, in its brief moment, it is, just like you. Your body, your thoughts, your memories, they're not static objects. They're patterns of vibration. Interference in a field, notes in a melody no one hears, yet everything feels. Isn't it strange to think that you're not sitting on the quantum field, but in it? That your fingers, your eyelids, your breath are not additions to this universe, but expressions of it, like whispers rising out of silence, shaped for a moment, then fading back. If everything is just a ripple, the first voice wonders, then, where does the ripple end and the ocean begin? The second doesn't answer. Instead, there's just stillness. And in that silence, a deeper truth seems to emerge. The ripple is the ocean. There is no line. You're not separate from reality. You are reality, vibrating here and now. There's something oddly comforting about that, isn't there? The thought that you're not a stranger to this cosmos, not something placed into it like a pebble dropped into a pond. You're part of its flow. You've always been part of its song. And yet, that brings us to the next question. If all things are just fields vibrating, if the universe itself is a kind of music, then how do we know it exists at all when there's no one there to hear it? Wait, the voice returns, softer now. If the world is just patterns, does it even exist without someone to experience it? The other smiles. You can almost hear it through the quiet. Maybe that's the point, they whisper. Maybe the ripple only knows itself because you noticed. Maybe the field sings because you are listening. And in that gentle silence that follows, there's no answer, only the faint impression of one, like the hush that lingers after a lullaby, as though the universe itself is rocking you to sleep, waiting to dissolve just for a while back into its silent ocean. Now rest, and let yourself become the stillness between two waves. Relational quantum mechanics. Somewhere between silence and sensation, the world takes shape, not as an absolute, but as a whisper passed between two listeners. A chair is not simply a chair. It is a chair for you because you sit in front of it. A photon is not just a particle darting through the void. It becomes a photon only when something observes it, when someone or something listens. Relational quantum mechanics offers a quiet rebellion against the old certainties. Instead of assuming that objects hold fixed identities, this theory suggests something startling. Properties like position, momentum, even existence itself, arise only in relation to observers. In other words, nothing is on its own. Things become when seen, when interacted with, when woven into a relationship. So wait, if no one looks at the moon, is it still there? Well, maybe not as a moon, maybe just as a potential, a possibility, waiting for a story. Think of reality, not as a painting hanging on a wall, but as a dance that requires a partner. You step forward, and the universe steps too. But the shape it takes depends on where you're standing, how you look, what you bring to the moment. No dancer, no dance. It's a humbling and haunting thought. If the fabric of the world depends on relations between observer and observed, then is there a universe outside of us at all? Or is every tree, every thought, every particle part of a web that only becomes real when touched by attention? And what about memory? If you remember something that no one else saw, did it truly happen? Relational quantum mechanics would not give you a single answer. It would say, it was real for you. That doesn't mean it's universal. It means it's relational. The dream, the sorrow, the flash of joy, they mattered in your frame. But in someone else's frame, they may not even register. A soft breeze at night can be a comfort for one and a ghostly chill for another. The same gust, two realities. So, is truth just an agreement? Maybe truth is the space where agreements overlap, where enough perspectives converge that we start calling it real. This doesn't mean everything is illusion. It means everything is dialogue. Existence isn't a monologue shouted into the void. It's a conversation whispered across time and perception. You, the world, the stars, the dust, they're all partners in this quiet, cosmic exchange. Now let that conversation dissolve into silence and ask yourself gently, what remains when no one is there to answer? Is the universe still speaking? Or was it always your voice echoing back? The cosmic silence. The stars do not speak. They burn, they shimmer, they die, but they do not whisper their secrets. You can stare into the black velvet of space for hours and hear nothing but the hum of your own thoughts. It's as if the universe, vast beyond comprehension, has taken a vow of silence. And in that silence, something stirs, not in the galaxies, but in us. There's a question that lingers like static in a radio with no signal. If the universe is so old, so immense, and so full of possibilities, then where is everyone? This is the haunting puzzle known as the Fermi Paradox. With billions of stars and likely trillions of planets, logic says we shouldn't be alone. And yet, the void offers no reply, no transmissions, no signatures, just stillness. Why? Maybe it's not silence, but distance. Maybe civilizations burn out before they can speak loud enough. Or perhaps they speak in ways we're too primitive to understand. Signals that slip through us like wind through glass. The question then becomes heavier. Is the silence a sign that we are unique or that we are unprepared? Do you ever wonder, she whispered, curled up on the couch, if the universe is waiting for us to grow up before it says hello? He looked at her, half smiling. Or maybe we're the toddlers babbling into a radio, thinking we're sending Shakespeare to the stars. She laughed softly, then turned serious. But what if we're not the speakers? What if we're the echo? It's a chilling thought. Maybe we're the imprint of something long gone. Maybe intelligence flares and fades like dying suns, leaving only residue, language carved into DNA, instinct passed like a rumor from cell to cell, and what we call life is just a long memory, forgetting itself. Or perhaps we are alone, not by design, but by rarity. The universe doesn't owe us company, it only offers possibility, and possibility can be cruel in its patience. But here's the secret the silence hides. It's never truly empty. Space isn't silent, it's quiet. There's a difference. Quiet holds potential. A pause before the song, a breath before the answer. The echo we wait for may not come from out there, but from within, reflected in the way we keep asking, because to wonder is to reach, to doubt is to listen, and maybe that's all the universe ever wanted, for someone to care enough to ask why it's so quiet. So now, drift with that question. Let it hum beneath your thoughts like a note that never ends, because even silence has a rhythm, and even the echo is a voice. The hidden order in chaos. A breeze brushes your cheek and disappears. A car honks far away, like a memory you didn't know you had. Some nights feel like that, filled with signals, patterns, moments that seem to arrive from nowhere and then vanish before you know what they meant. But what if nothing was random at all? There's a kind of beauty in watching water swirl down a drain. To the eye, it's erratic, wild, until you notice the curve, the spiral, the symmetry inside the mess. Chaos theory whispers that even the most unpredictable things might be following a hidden dance. You just weren't watching from the right distance. A boy once dropped a pebble in a river. Decades later, a man reads a book written by someone who was inspired by a poem, that was inspired by an event, caused by a change, made possible because of where that pebble landed. And neither of them ever knew. That's how the butterfly effect works. A flap of a wing, a soft choice, a pause in traffic, a word unspoken. It all echoes. In the soft glow of a late train station, two strangers stand by a vending machine. One says, "You go ahead, I'm still choosing." But the other says, "No, I'll wait. Something tells me this is the right pause." It feels ordinary. But then again, doesn't every miracle start as something ordinary? Maybe your missed train wasn't a mistake. Maybe the person who didn't text back left a space so something better could land. Maybe even heartbreak is just a rerouting. Like wind circling around a cliff it was never meant to climb. Sometimes chaos is only chaos because we're standing too close. Take a few emotional steps back, and you might find that every crooked turn in your life was curving toward something. Maybe you weren't lost. You were being placed. You fall asleep thinking your day was a mess. But if someone rewound it, painted it in slow motion, added music, it might look like choreography. Every sigh, every delay, every awkward silence. Like the perfect rhythm of a dance, too complex to see until it's over. And now, as you rest, let that thought stay with you. If randomness is just hidden pattern, then maybe you've never taken a wrong step. Maybe you've only ever been learning the steps to a song you didn't know was yours. So as your breath slows and your thoughts grow quieter, consider this. If order can wear the mask of chaos, then perhaps even the versions of you that feel uncertain, unfinished, or forgotten are exactly where they're meant to be. And somewhere, softly, in a life almost like yours, another you is beginning to wonder the same thing. Quantum cloning paradox. You sit in a quiet train station, not a soul in sight. A voice behind you says, softly but clearly, "Did you think you saw someone just like you boarding that train?" You turn. There's no one there, only your reflection in the glass. But it doesn't move quite when you do. Quantum mechanics tells a quiet secret. No perfect copy of an unknown quantum state can exist. It's called the no-cloning theorem. That means, in the deepest layers of reality, replication isn't allowed. You, as you are in this moment, your sigh, your memory of last summer's warmth, the way your eyes lingered on that painting at 3 p.m., can never be exactly repeated, not even by the universe itself. A barista once said to her friend across the counter, "Every cup I make tastes a little different, even when I follow the recipe." And the friend laughed. Then maybe people are like espresso shots. You can't pull the same one twice. She nodded. And some linger longer on the tongue. What quantum physics whispers is this: every version of you is singular, not because of ego or identity or fate, but because nature itself resists repetition. Even if the entire universe tried to copy you atom for atom, spin for spin, it couldn't. Not truly. It's not just unlikely, it's forbidden. But what if that's not a law? What if it's a kindness? If cloning is impossible, then maybe loneliness is sacred. Maybe the sensation of being the only one looking isn't a trick, but the very fabric of perception. The feeling of being irreplaceable might not be emotional, it might be quantum. One evening, a man reached across a crowded cafe to borrow a pen. "Thanks," he smiled. "It's strange. I have 4 at home, but I needed yours tonight." And the woman replied, "It's okay. This one only works when it travels." Even in passing moments, there's a sense of irreproducibility that hugs our lives. No memory can be relived exactly. No thought again quite the same. That scar on your knee? That breath you just let go? Quantum laws say they happened once, and only once. So if you've ever wondered if you're just one version among many, if you've ever feared being a copy in a world full of mirrors, know this: physics says you're not. You are not a backup file. You are not a draft. You are the live broadcast, unrepeatable, undownloadable, unclonable. And if you ever feel scattered, if you ever forget that, listen for the pause between your thoughts. The pause where even the universe holds its breath before doing the next thing. That breath, it carries your shape. Now, let that shape dissolve. Let the idea of self spread like stardust into the quiet night. And meet me, if you wish, in the next dimension, where the copies fall away and only the silence remains. Quantum Zeno Effect, frozen by watching. There's a quiet strangeness in how things behave when we pay too much attention. In quantum mechanics, the Zeno effect suggests that the more frequently you observe a particle, the more you prevent it from changing. It's as if time itself hesitates under your stare, stuck between what was and what could be. This isn't just a theory of atoms. It's a whisper about life, about you, about the way overthinking can pin a moment down so tightly it forgets how to move. You ever just sit there, a voice says in a cafe, low and thoughtful, and feel like your life's in pause because you're too aware of it? The other person nods. Like when you keep refreshing your email and nothing arrives. But the moment you walk away, ding. That, right there, is the Zeno effect, but made human. Observation is a form of energy, and too much of it, too often, can trap us in the moment we're trying to change. The watched pot doesn't boil, not because heat fails, but because the gaze interrupts the rhythm. The same way self-consciousness can paralyze performance, or how love can't bloom under scrutiny. Consider the dancer on stage. Her steps flow when no one looks, but when the spotlight hits, she freezes. Not because she doesn't know the moves, but because the presence of the gaze collapses possibility into pressure. That's what attention does. It defines, and sometimes definition denies movement. A boy once stared at his goldfish bowl for hours, hoping to see the fish leap. It never did. But one day, when he left for school, the water rippled, a tiny splash left on the glass. His mother smiled. Some things move better when no one's watching. There's wisdom in that. Maybe healing happens in the dark, without the microscope. Maybe growth isn't in the staring, but in the surrender. You don't tug a flower to make it taller. You give it space, soil, and trust. In our relationships too, ever notice how someone trying too hard to impress becomes stiff, unnatural? But when they stop trying, they laugh easier. Their eyes soften. The moment breathes. It becomes real. I think I ruin moments by wanting them to be perfect, someone says, quiet now, staring into their tea. The steam curls slowly. Like, if I just stopped watching, maybe life would surprise me. And maybe that's the heart of it. Attention is sacred, but too much of it can turn life into a specimen instead of a stream. We're not meant to hold everything in place, not even ourselves. Change needs room. It needs silence. It needs a little forgetting. So tonight, if your thoughts keep circling the same question, try letting it go. Let the moment pass through you, like wind through trees. You don't need to solve it. You don't need to watch it. Just allow it. Because the universe, like you, was never meant to be frozen. And as the quiet takes hold, feel your awareness soften, like a hand unclenching, like a sky uncluttered by stars. And in that space, where watching ends, something begins to move again. Something that was waiting, not for your gaze, but for your permission to be. The string that tied you here, somewhere between the weight of your eyelids and the stillness of the room, something invisible hums beneath your awareness. You didn't plan to end up here, at this hour, in this thought, listening to this voice. Maybe it was a decision, or maybe it was a whisper you once heard in a half-formed dream, a promise made long ago, now folded inside the quiet of your breath. There's a thread. You can't see it, but you can feel it, like warmth in your chest when someone remembers your name, like a song you didn't know you needed until the first note played. It pulls softly, not with force, but with familiarity, as if you've been here before and something in you never really left. I keep feeling like I'm supposed to be somewhere else, one voice murmurs, low and unsure. Or maybe you're exactly where you promised you'd be, the other replies, gently folding their coat over the chair, as if that too were part of the answer. This isn't about fate, not in the grand, thundering sense. It's quieter than that. Like how you reach for your keys without looking or know someone's about to call before the phone rings. The thread is subtle. It moves with you, around you, through you. Maybe it was tied to a smile you once gave a stranger on a subway, or the way you held your breath in the middle of a sentence you never finished. It could be wrapped around your favorite childhood hiding spot, or looped through the pages of that book you never returned to the library. And if you followed it, really followed it, where would it go? A streetlight flickers above a cafe where two people are arguing softly over nothing in particular. "You always want to go first," one says with a half laugh. "I just hate waiting when I know I've already made up my mind," the other replies, sipping their coffee. They pause. We keep ending up in the same places. Maybe we're not the ones choosing. It's strange, isn't it? How the thread doesn't demand attention. It doesn't shout. It waits, like the smell of old perfume in a coat pocket, like the echo of a childhood nickname. And it's always leading, never pushing. Backward into memory, forward into longing, deeper into something true. It may not answer your questions, but it keeps asking one: what tethered you to this moment? The thread isn't made of time. It's made of connection, of glances, silences, and the way your fingers linger just a second longer on something that matters. It doesn't try to convince you of anything. It simply holds space. And in that space, maybe you begin to feel something steady, something safe, something real. "Why am I still thinking about that day?" someone asks, their voice cracked open just a little too wide. "Because part of you is still there," the other says, not looking up. "And that part is still listening." So tonight, as your breath slows and the room folds around you like a quiet cocoon, hold on to the string. You don't need to understand it. You just need to feel it. Let it wrap gently around your thoughts and pull you, not away, but inward. Because the next idea is already waiting, and it's made of memory, and it's shaped like a question, and it only speaks if you let it. The Mandela Effect. Somewhere between what you saw and what they remember, a silence lingers. Not an ordinary forgetting, but a sharp dissonance, as if two parallel lives touched shoulders and kept walking unaware. One insists the Monopoly man has a monocle. Another swears he never did. Both believe. Neither lie. A soft voice once said in a waiting room, "Didn't Pikachu have a black tip on his tail?" And the woman next to him, without looking up from her magazine, replied, "He still does, doesn't he?" There's no verdict, only the room's humming air, unsure whom to agree with. This is the Mandela Effect, where our minds recall one world, yet find themselves living in another. A collective déjà vu dressed in certainty. Some say it's memory playing tricks. Others whisper of timelines branching like tree roots under pavement, each one insisting it's the trunk. If your mind can cling to a truth that never was, what else might it be holding on to? And how do we know what was real, when even history can blush with uncertainty? Maybe this is how myths are born, not from deception, but from the chorus of shared belief. Like a childhood friend who tells you about the game you used to play under the stairs. Though you don't remember it, something inside nods, grateful, as if the story deserves to be true, even if it never happened. And yet, even in doubt, we find comfort. Like when a stranger at a bus stop says, "You're wearing that color again, just like last Tuesday," even though you've never met. You smile anyway. Let it be true. Let their memory wrap around you like a coat someone swears you left behind. So which world is more trustworthy? The one you touch with your fingers, or the one your heart insists it once held? In the stillness of the mind, memory becomes a painter. And sometimes it swaps colors, forgets the outlines, or adds something you never asked for. But the image is yours, felt, framed, and now Let's step gently. Let the past soften, not disappear. Let your eyelids fall, not in defeat, but in surrender to this one quiet truth. Not everything needs to be remembered perfectly for it to be real to you. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most human thing of all. The persistence of consciousness. Close your eyes for a moment. Don't chase the thoughts. Don't follow the images. Just notice that you're noticing. That quiet watcher behind the noise. That's consciousness. Not the racing thoughts, not the memories of today or the plans for tomorrow. Just the presence that sees it all. Like a mirror, perfectly still, it reflects without judgment, without effort. Hey, have you ever felt like time pauses for just a second? What do you mean? Like, you're sitting there, not thinking anything, not doing anything, but something in you is still there, like you're watching the world, even without words. Yeah, it feels kind of empty, but in a peaceful way. Exactly. It's like something's aware of everything, even when we're not trying. Some traditions call it the soul. Some scientists call it a phenomenon. Some dare to call it an illusion. But regardless of the name, this stillness keeps returning every time the mind gets quiet. When the story of me dissolves, when age, identity, and memory blur, there's something that still knows it's here, something unshaken. Even in dreams, we are aware we are dreaming. Even in fear, something watches from a distance. Could it be that this watcher is the only real thing we ever know? What if consciousness isn't a result of the brain, but the stage on which all things appear? Like the sky that never changes, even as clouds rush by, or like the silent canvas that holds every brushstroke of your life, but never becomes the painting itself. If that's true, then maybe we've misunderstood what it means to exist. Maybe the true you isn't the one thinking, but the one listening. Not the voice in your head, but the ear that hears it. And if the body fades, if memory collapses, and if time stops flowing, yet something still notices the absence, what does that say about the essence of reality? Could presence itself be eternal? Could the dream end, but the dreamer never does? Do you ever wonder who you were before you had a name? Before I was anyone? Yeah. Like, if all your stories disappeared, would there still be someone there? I think so. That part of me, that sees, that never changes. So what is real then? The fleeting noise of thought or the silence behind it? Is the world outside more real than the simple knowing inside? The mind rushes to answer, but consciousness doesn't need to argue. It just is. It watches every rise and fall, every fear and joy, without grasping or resisting. It is the soft hum beneath your heartbeat, the pause between each breath, the one thing that remains when everything else slips away. Let's rest in that awareness now, just for a little while longer. Let the thoughts fall away. Let the world drift to the background. Stay in the gentle gravity of presence, where nothing needs to be said, and everything is already known. And as you begin to wonder if this moment has happened before, allow yourself to float gently into the possibility that consciousness is not bound by time at all. Maybe this stillness, this gentle witness, has always been here, watching, waiting, persisting. The boundaries of freedom. You're walking home after a long day. The streetlight flickers behind you, and a breeze brushes past your collar like a whispered thought. For a brief moment, you pause, not because something is wrong, but because something feels decided. as if your next step was chosen for you long before you even got tired. Physics calls it determinism, the idea that every move, every heartbeat, every flicker of your thoughts follows a chain of cause and effect. And your brain, a cathedral of electricity and chemistry, responds not with freedom, but with patterns. When you laugh at a joke, is it really you laughing? Or your neurons firing because the setup was just right? At a cafe, a woman nudges the sugar closer and says with a smile, "Funny how we think we're choosing everything, but I only sat here because that table was taken." Her friend stirs his drink and replies, "Maybe even our rebellion is pre-approved by the universe." It's strange, isn't it? The word freedom feels warm, soft even. But when you dig into it, it slips through your fingers like water. Because if everything in you is a result of everything before you, your childhood, your sleep, even your blood sugar, then what part of you decides? And yet, in that pause between thought and action, something still flickers. Not a choice, perhaps, but a noticing, a sliver of space that doesn't scream or shove. It watches. Maybe that's what you are. Not the puppet, not the strings, but the pause in between. The moment you hesitate before speaking, the breath you take before answering a message, the second glance at a stranger, wondering if you've seen them before, or just in a dream. That pause doesn't control the story, but it witnesses it. And witnessing is a kind of quiet power. A man steps off the bus and holds the door for someone behind him. She says, "Thanks, I thought I was going to miss it." He shrugs, smiles. "Maybe you weren't supposed to." So, if freedom isn't about control, maybe it's about grace, about being able to watch without clinging, to drift without panic, to soften even when the path feels carved in stone. Now exhale, not because you chose to, but because the body knows what to do when it's safe. And in that safety, there is something else. Not choice, not fate, just you, aware, still, and the world flowing on, with or without your permission. Let's stay in that stillness just for a little while longer. The next step will come. It always does. But for now, there is only this moment and the freedom of letting go. The shadow of truth. The hallway is quiet tonight. Your footsteps barely echo. You follow the light ahead, not knowing why, but trusting the way it spills across the floor like a silent invitation. You've always been told to seek the truth, haven't you? As if truth were a beacon, as if it stood still, waiting. But tonight, the light flickers. You get closer, and something shifts. There's always a shadow behind the light. You never notice it when you're running, only when you pause. Some say truth is illumination. But philosophers, those quiet, stubborn minds across centuries, have whispered something else, that for every truth you uncover, there's a mystery deepening behind it, like pulling a sheet off a painting, only to find another layer taped beneath. "I thought I had it figured out," someone says beside you on the bench outside the station. She's older, wrinkles like folded paper, eyes like softened glass. "But then I realized I only understood the part I was ready to face." He nods. "I used to believe in solid ground, one idea, one story. Then I met someone who told me the opposite, and I didn't know who to believe." Their voices aren't arguing. They're sharing something, a space between certainties, because every clarity has a cost. The wave comes, but the trough follows. And maybe, just maybe, knowing anything at all means you've already not known something else. That's the quiet rule of duality. If you name the flame, you ignore the smoke. So when you say, "I understand," remember the hidden corridor behind that statement, the hallway you didn't turn down, the silence that hummed after the sentence ended. And if you feel uncertain, if you wonder whether you ever truly know anyone or anything, let that be okay. Truth, like moonlight on a lake, always dances just out of reach when you try to grab it. But its shimmer, that shimmer is real enough to rest beside. As your breath slows, notice that even this thought has a shadow, a gentle one, the part that isn't said, the part that lets you sleep. Now drift slowly in that twilight, not in confusion, but in gentle acceptance. Not everything has to be solved tonight. Some truths are meant to be held softly, not solved completely. Let's walk toward the place where even identity loosens, where your name becomes less important than your stillness, where every certainty dims into soft questions, and every question becomes safe to leave unanswered. Sleep when you're ready, or listen just a little longer. The next whisper may sound familiar, like something you've always known, but never spoken aloud. The ego dissolution. You sit still, and suddenly, you're not sure where you end and the room begins. The name you carry, so heavy, so polished, slips quietly behind a curtain of breath. There's no need to be anyone now, not the version of you from this morning, not the voice you used to win approval. Just this, the soft echo of presence without narration. Do you ever feel like your thoughts are just floating past? She asked, half whispering, her fingers curled around a chipped mug. He nodded. Yeah, like I'm watching myself pretending to be me. Somewhere, in the stillness that follows, the ego folds in on itself. The need to be something dissolves like sugar in warm tea. You're not your resume. You're not your regrets. You're not the mask you wore to survive the day. You're simply the awareness that notices all of it, without grasping. In deep meditation, or when the world momentarily cracks, like after a great loss, a profound love, or standing barefoot on the edge of something infinite, we glimpse it. The self evaporates, and what's left behind isn't emptiness, it's clarity, a gaze without a face, a breeze without origin. There's no longer a you thinking. There's only thought, appearing and vanishing like fish in a moonlit pond. And somehow this state, so fragile, so elusive, feels more real than anything before. No striving, no comparing, just being, fully, quietly. I forgot what I came here to say, he mumbled as he looked out at the night sky. That's okay, she said, smiling. Sometimes silence says it better. When the ego slips away, even for a heartbeat, the world feels wider, not because it has changed, but because you no longer need to control it. You're not the story. You're the space it floats in, not the cloud, but the sky. And in that sky, another mystery begins to stir. If the self disappears, who is left to notice it? Can you observe your own vanishing? Or is the observer merely another mask? Don't try to answer. Let the question rest, like dew on morning grass. Let it shimmer and fade. Let yourself drift into the space between thoughts. You don't need to hold on. You are never holding anything anyway. Sleep comes easily here, where no name is needed, where being is enough, where you are no longer trying to be real, because realness no longer needs proving. Let's linger in that hush, where the self dissolves and the watcher dreams without a face. The dream within a dream. You thought you had woken up, but what if you simply stepped from one dream into another, just a longer, stickier one that calls itself reality? A man once sat by the window of a subway car, staring out at the blur of tunnels and lights. He turned to the stranger next to him and said, "You ever get the feeling that the morning you woke up wasn't the real one?" The stranger nodded, quietly. All the time. Lucid dreamers speak of the moment when they know it's a dream, but don't want to wake up just yet. The flight is too perfect, the gravity too soft, the colors too honest, and so they stay, knowing, but still choosing the story. Is that so different from this life? We believe the alarm clock is truth, the bills, the weather, the ache in your back. But how many times have you swum through a dream so vivid it held your body hostage, only to wake and laugh at the illusion? And how many times have you done the opposite, woken up into something that felt less real than what came before? A quiet conversation once happened in a laundromat at midnight. A woman leaned over to a man folding a shirt and said, "Sometimes I feel like I'm just picking up where someone else's story left off, like I slipped into the wrong script." He smiled, tired. Maybe we all did. If, in a dream, you're convinced it's real, then reality itself might just be the most consistent illusion. After all, consistency is a trick your brain loves. Repetition makes belief. A rhythm becomes comfort. But even the most comfortable rhythms can be songs that loop forever. And what if every time you wake, you're only shedding one costume for another? Perhaps you're not a dreamer inside the dream. Perhaps you're the dream being dreamed. Now close your mental curtains. Let the scene dissolve. Let the actors forget their lines. There is no need to resolve the question tonight, only to rest in the softness of unknowing. And if you find yourself waking later, ask gently, was that a dream? Or is this one kinder? The ice within. There's a certain silence that falls in winter, not just around us, but inside us too. A kind of hush that blankets the corners of the mind we rarely visit. Beneath the smile, beneath the voice we use in public, beneath the laughter that fills a room too quickly, something waits. Not hostile, not broken. Just cold, still, undisturbed. I think I just forget about it. One voice murmurs in a kitchen late at night, hands wrapped around a warm mug. Forget what? That old feeling. The one I never had words for, like a room I locked and left in the dark. The reply is soft, almost like exhaling steam on glass. Yeah, but it doesn't forget you. In psychology, they call these places the shadow. The parts of us we disown, memories we freeze, emotions we exile. Anger turned to politeness, fear buried beneath productivity, pain disguised as control. And in quantum language, where particles don't exist until observed, these hidden parts are possibilities unmeasured, potential unacknowledged. They linger, not as dead things, but as energy, waiting for recognition. You don't need to thaw the whole glacier. Just notice the first drop of meltwater. A thought that returns, a dream that won't stay buried, a tear you didn't plan. One man paused on a staircase once, holding a bag of groceries mid-step. "I don't know why that song hit me today," he said, half laughing. It opened something. Another replied without looking up, "Maybe it wasn't the song. Maybe it was the part of you that was finally ready to be heard." We treat our darkness as an enemy. But what if it's a mirror, blurred but honest? What if the sadness you avoid is the soil where joy grows back stronger? In the quantum field, no version of you is ever fully erased. You're not either happy or broken. You're a spectrum, a wave, and in that wave, even your frozen parts shimmer. You are not failing for having shadows. They are not mistakes. They are maps. They are frozen rivers waiting for spring. And when the ice cracks, just slightly, you might feel a ripple inside. Not pain, not fear, just presence, just truth warming its hands at your fire. Do you think it ever really goes away? One asks beneath a starless sky. No, comes the quiet answer. But I think we get better at sitting beside it, without running. So take one breath, just one, into that hidden chamber. Let it be cold, let it be quiet. You're still here, still breathing. And now, as the frost softens, we drift toward our final illusion, that anything truly ends, including time, including this night, including the version of you thought would never be whole. The soothing, thoughtful journey. The world says time flows like a river. But what if that river is only inside you, whispering movement into something that was never moving to begin with? A train idles at the station, not going forward, not going back. And yet, you feel it pulling. Maybe it's not the train that moves, but the window of your awareness, scanning scene by scene, moment by moment, like breath finding its rhythm across a silent night. Do you ever feel like the day slipped past before it even began? A question floated gently from one diner booth to another, late evening, between two people waiting on coffee refills. The other one chuckled softly, staring out the window. Sometimes I wonder if I lived the whole thing yesterday and just remembered it wrong today. Physics dares to echo this absurdity. That time, so intimate, so personal, may not flow at all. It may be a sculpture, whole and unmoving, waiting only for perception to animate it. The now you cling to may be nothing more than a frame paused in an eternal slideshow, a spotlight, not a sequence. Someone in line at the pharmacy murmurs, "Feels like this morning happened years ago." The cashier smiles, scanning the box of tea. That's how Tuesdays work. They bend time weird. But maybe that's not just small talk. Maybe our sense of moving through time is a quiet hallucination shared between minds longing for forward motion. And if there is no flow, just a layered, static presence, then perhaps you are the ripple, a being made of attention, gliding over unmoving truths. Not the clock ticking, but the one who notices. You sit still, but the world flickers like old cinema reels, frames unchanged, but your gaze dances. Even your memories aren't time travel. They're bookmarks in a story that was never bound by linear ink. Did you feel that? One voice whispers as a breeze shifts the curtains. Feel what? The other replies, half asleep. That sense that something just passed through us, like we left a moment behind without moving at all. Let that thought cradle you now. No need to chase tomorrow. No need to grasp yesterday. Just rest in this slice of being, this delicate silent now. Let your awareness be the light, and let the real stay still. And as that light dims, soft, like a candle in fog, know that it's okay to lose track of time. Because maybe time never tracked you to begin with. Silent truths revealed. There's a kind of hush that doesn't ask for your attention. It simply waits, soft and steady, between the breaths you didn't know you were holding. In this quiet, something ancient stirs. Not a thought, not a word, just a feeling you can't trace but somehow trust. Did you hear that? No. But I felt something shift. The two strangers stood in the elevator, neither sure why that silence felt more full than the music playing before it. And just like that, they understood something they couldn't name. Some truths don't arrive dressed in sentences. They don't knock. They don't shout. They simply sit at the edge of your awareness, like a shadow cast not by light, but by stillness. In quantum physics, we learn about the unmeasured particle, how until you observe it, it exists in all possible states. No decision, no collapse, just raw potential. Silence, too, behaves this way, not the kind you fill with your phone screen or busy thoughts, but the deep, reverent silence that holds every version of your truth before you decide which one to speak. A woman once said to her friend, "I didn't reply to his message, but somehow, I think he understood more from my silence than he would have from 1,000 words." Her friend nodded, quietly placing a hand on her shoulder, not to comfort, but to witness. There was nothing to fix, nothing to explain, just truth, raw, wordless, whole. In mystical traditions, silence isn't emptiness. It's presence at its most concentrated, the kind of presence that sees without looking, hears without sound, and understands without translation. It doesn't demand clarity. It offers connection. It invites you to sit with your own not knowing and trust that what matters most will rise, not as a voice, but as a quiet yes. Perhaps this is why we feel something sacred when the world falls still, why the night feels like it knows us better than the day, why the deepest love often says nothing at all. And maybe that's the secret. Truth doesn't always show up in answers. It lives in the willingness to stay with the question, even when the question trembles. A man once stepped into a bookstore, browsed the philosophy aisle, then sat down beside a stranger and whispered, "I'm not looking for something new. I'm hoping to remember something I forgot." The stranger didn't respond. She just reached into her bag, pulled out a worn notebook, and held it between them. No words, no instructions, just presence. That was enough. So now, here, in this moment suspended between one thought and the next, what if you simply stopped searching? What if you let silence hold you the way arms do, not to define you, but to remind you that you are already whole? And as that stillness wraps around you, like the soft closing of a door behind you at the end of a long day, know this: you've journeyed far, from particles and paradoxes, through questions and mirrors, to this final resting space where truth doesn't need to be said to be known. Let it linger. Let it be. Let it become the quiet center of everything you are. The Final Disappearance. The street lamp flickers through your curtain, and with it, something inside begins to dim. This is not the kind of dimming that brings fear. It's the soft surrender, the kind that occurs just before a candle gives its final light, not with resistance, but with grace. There's a theory, quiet, almost too shy to speak aloud, that says the reason nothing feels real is because you are no longer confined to what real means. Not the name you carry, not the voice you speak in, not even the stories that shaped you. And yet, you're still here, breathing, aware, present. You walk into a quiet coffee shop, one of those places where the music doesn't try too hard and the barista smiles like they've seen through time. A stranger steps aside and says, "Take this seat. Feels like you need it more than I do." There's no logic to it, no transaction, but you sit, and in that brief gesture, something dissolves. Perhaps this life, this everything, has always been a shared hallucination held together by agreement. Perhaps it was never meant to be understood. Sometimes, late at night, when the ceiling above you seems to breathe with the rhythm of your thoughts, you may find yourself wondering, if I stop thinking, do I still exist? The answer doesn't come in words. It arrives in stillness. Two people are walking through a hallway. One turns to the other and says, You ever get the feeling we're just actors who forgot our lines? The other replies, yeah. But the silence is where the truth always was. They don't need to explain it, and neither do you. When all identities slip away, your job, your worries, your reflection in the mirror, you're not left with loss. You're left with being, something more primal than thought, softer than feeling, older than memory. No labels, no destination, just this strange, weightless presence. A presence that can sit with discomfort and not call it bad. A presence that doesn't chase understanding, but opens its hands to mystery. Even pain, when viewed from this space, becomes just another cloud drifting across the sky of consciousness. No need to push it away. It was never yours to begin with, so let's not rush. Let the breath be slow. Let your mind unfasten from its anchors and float, gently, kindly, into whatever comes next. No need to explain what you are, no story to tell. Just this quiet here-ness, like a lake that reflects everything, but needs nothing in return. If all of this is a dream, and the dreamer is not bound by the dream, then maybe this is what freedom tastes like. And if nothing is real, then neither is your fear. You've arrived at the place before thought, where the noise fades, where understanding is unnecessary, where even time forgets its name. Someone leans close to you and whispers, "There's nothing to do now, just rest." Their voice doesn't ask anything of you. It doesn't demand you believe. It only offers a doorway into silence. Step through. Let go of needing to be anything, fix anything, or solve anything. There's no self to fix, no universe to decode. Only this breath, this peace, this gentle knowing, even if nothing is real, this peace is. Good night. And now, as your breath grows slower and your thoughts lighter, consider this. If everything you've ever touched, seen, or remembered could be a ripple, a momentary echo in an invisible field, then maybe the only thing that was ever real is your awareness of it. You are not the wave. You are the ocean watching it rise. Perhaps you've been asleep this whole time, or perhaps you're only now beginning to wake up, not to a world of facts, but to a mystery too vast for certainty and too gentle for fear. So close your eyes. Let the questions remain. You don't need to solve the universe tonight. You just need to rest inside it. Good night, traveler. You are safe in the space between thought and silence. And in that space, nothing may be real, but everything is possible.